Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, April 26th, and we are here for our briefing meeting this afternoon, and the time is 1:01 p.m. On today's agenda, we have Code of Conduct for students pre-K through 12 and also for adult students. We have job descriptions, capital project quarterly update, change orders, and Franklin Park design and rebuild update. At this time, I will welcome Mr. Brian Mangan, Mr. Chuck Bradley, I don't see him, Tammy Scott, Jessica Duncan, Todd Everly, and Carol Hager to the table. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Board members, Chair, Superintendent, this is our second opportunity to bring the Code of Conduct before y'all. We had the opportunity back on April 11th during the workshop to discuss it, and so as you said, I'm joined by the people, so I'm not going to introduce them again. Please do note that there have been some changes and updates from the April 11th version of the pre-K through 5 and the 6 through 12 based on the feedback we received. However, the Adult Code of Conduct does not have any changes from the last meeting, so that is consistent, but Mr. Everly is here for questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you.
With that, our agenda is focused on the topics that we addressed the last time and some feedback on how we're going to proceed forward with some of the short-term and long-term plans that were asked of us. One of the big things that came out of the meeting and the consensus from the board was to have the guidance on hair color removed from the Code of Conduct. So whether you're looking on page 95 of the 612 version or page 91 of the pre-K 5, we have suggested removing that bullet point that addresses hair in schools. I think that does meet the request from the board, or the guidance from the board. Also, it does coincide with the Crown Act, which is currently in Congress right now, that promotes the create respect in the world for natural hairstyles, and so that does answer that as well as the board's desires. So, the other big challenge we talked about before was the parent portal and how we're going to communicate that with the upcoming school year. We have a couple of opportunities inside of this. As we continue to migrate as a district into a single student information system focus, we'll have the opportunity to promote the communication of parents using the portal, signing up for it so that they can access their students' attendance, grades, and even disciplinary referrals that might be entered into the system. We'll have an outstanding opportunity in August during the open house, when we are back to our more recognized forms of open houses that we haven't had in the last couple of years. So we'll have a lot more parents on campus, and we're going to be urging our schools to make sure they have computer labs opened up for the immediate rush on that night where we have the high schools and the elementary schools, and on the other evening when we have the middle school open houses scheduled. And since it's a district-wide concerted effort to have those open houses, it will also be something that we'll be asking our schools to do en masse. For the long-term portion of that, though, we're going to be asking schools to consider setting up kiosks and things like that in their front office, maybe even considering some different techniques to capture parents' feedback and participation in the portal, maybe even as ingenious as visiting them in car line while they're waiting to pick up their kid. Chromebook travels well. We also will have the advantage of having report cards coming out in focus for this upcoming year as well, which I think will be another incentive for our parents to open up in that system and have access to the information, and conversely be able to provide us with these critical pieces of information we would like to have from our parents, whether it's the Emergency Information or the Medical Information Act, which is critical to maintaining an environment of safety for our students. Short-term objectives, there was quite a bit of discussion around enforcement. I know it was talking about the dress code, but overall it applies to the Code of Conduct as well. We have a couple of things that are set up that we'll be focusing on our school administration to include our deans and designees that work with student affairs in our schools. And so we will be taking advantage of the Sizzling Summer Series. We already have a couple of trainings set up in there, scheduled. We will also have the opportunity of our annual summer leadership to provide feedback, coaching, and guidance to our school-based administrators. And then we have, of course, the pre-service week, which will be yet another opportunity to do it. But it's not just enough to do it at the beginning of the year. It needs to be sustained. And this year, we were fortunate enough to start setting up the assistant principals and dean trainings on a monthly basis. And so we will have the opportunity inside of that to continue to reinforce, recognize where we might be, have an opportunity for improvement, and to reinforce best practices as well, and give schools opportunities to share those with others that might need the assistance with it, as well as the guidance and support we provide out of student services and academic services as a whole for our schools. On the longer term objective, we have received the guidance from the board that we need to make sure that next year's code of conduct brings forward an option that is shorter and more compact in its design. And so we will start, and thank you again to the board for the opportunity to work on this big project over the next coming year. We will start this summer on that, where we will be identifying things that are required by state statute or federal statute, and as well as things that might be locally relevant board policy. I mean, if you look at our document now, we have about 8 links to board policy, things around attendance and makeup work, stuff like that. But where we can leverage those opportunities to write short descriptive paragraphs and embed links in them so that the document gets shortened up. The advantage also of having this year coming up to work on this is when we begin our traditional cycle of bringing it to the stakeholder groups, we'll be able to bring a draft version of what the shortened down or compacted version would look like and show it to the stakeholders also, which will give us the advantage of bringing it to this board in about a year from now, maybe a little less, and saying this is what we've come up with based on the guidance, and it also has the benefit of stakeholder feedback, and this is what they're saying about this suggestion or request that you all had for bringing this to a shorter version of it. So we'll be working on that with some of the folks here at the table, and definitely other folks within student services and wider groups as well. We do have our next steps. Again, these are our proposed action steps to bring it back to the board, pending your guidance and questions in just a moment, and then working with our business partners to make sure that a version is ready for the website that is ADA compliant, and also that we have the printed versions that we are required to have in our schools before students return on campus. With that, if there are any questions about the pre-K 5, the 612, or the adult code of conduct.
Okay, Mrs. Gittens.
Just looking at the slides you have up there now, just want to make sure I understand. So May 5th, submission for board action meeting, but it's not coming before us until the 24th?
Yeah, there is a guidance, like a spreadsheet that says this is when it needs to be provided in order for it to be published and all. And so that was just taking that from the guidance that we received.
Okay, so today the public has an opportunity at this briefing to ask questions about it. And when will be their next opportunity? On the 24th, when we're going to vote on the final?
That would be yes.
Okay.
Board members, any other questions or comments? I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done and the product that you've produced, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
I believe you're next time.
As well.
Got a few different people depending on the job description, so there's Todd is going to be
Okay, next on the agenda is job descriptions. And I see Mr. Everly and Will Rothenberg.
Good afternoon. So there are 3 job descriptions that are being brought forward for board approval. 2 are in the area of technical colleges, and the third is the athletic director job description to make that position an administrator position. The job descriptions were attached and were available to answer any questions that you might have and can provide additional background on the reason for bringing these job descriptions forward at this time.
Okay, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, good afternoon, both of you. Good to see you. To be brutally honest, I am always very, very leery when we get a new job description. It just gives me angst. I don't know why. I know it is not a filled position, but normally when it's presented, there is something in mind short term. So I am asking how long is, this is being presented today. When are you looking at filling this position, these positions?
So my understanding for the athletic director job description, this has been something that's been in discussion for a while. In looking at what other districts do, a number of them have athletic directors as an administrator position in order to recognize the level of responsibility and the amount of time away from one's family that job requires. I believe there's been discussion about advertising that position and allowing people to apply for that in the upcoming year. I'm not sure if that decision has officially been made, but I think that is the plan. And it would be something that a sitting athletic director would need to apply for the position, be interviewed and hired for that position. For the other 2, I'll let Mr. Everly speak since he can give you some more of the background.
Before you move on from that one, that was one of the ones I had a question about too. Where are we now? In other words, we have ADs at all the schools, all the high schools. Who do they report to now?
Currently, the athletic directors report to the school or site-based administrator, and then they also work with Mr. LaRosa as the district athletic director. There, through TALC bargaining, was the creation of an assistant athletic director supplement, I believe, a year or 2 ago, that was supposed to provide some backup so that person would not need to be present on campus for athletic competitions or events every single night of the week. And so we have those in place. I think, again, there's been some difficulty filling those positions because of the time commitment that's required. And so I think that's where the discussion moved in the direction of looking at an administrative position for...
In the district. So right now, the athletic directors for high schools report to Mr. LaRosa, right?
They would technically report to the school-based administrator. That's who would have decision-making authority for hiring, for evaluation purposes, that sort of thing. They would work under Mr. LaRosa since he's responsible for the athletic programming for the district.
Right. So I understand that the administrators on site are the ones that are their boss, but when they have athletic questions, they would go to Mr. LaRosa at this time. So with this position, the high school coaches or athletic directors would go to this person as opposed to Mr. LaRosa?
No, so I think this would be a school or possibly a district-based administrator position, but it would be to take the place of the current athletic director position. So it would be responsible for kind of the same reporting structure in terms of reporting both to a district-based person or a school or site-based person for whatever the particular needs are.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jordan, and then...
I just wanted to ask something what Ms. Gittens was speaking about too, because that's a little bit confusing. So you already have we already have, and I probably should already know this, so I apologize in advance. We already have athletic directors at the school. Is that correct? That's what they're called? So now we're going to take the athletic directors that are there at the school and call them something else, and now have another person who is the athletic director?
It's
Or am I
currently an instructional position. So technically, those people are working under the classroom teacher job description, and then they receive a supplement for being the athletic director. And the supplement is closer now to what other districts pay, but they also have a different structure where there's an administrator that performs most of the duties of an athletic director.
Okay.
And then the school-based person is the one that's helping with setup and breakdown of the field and being kind of an extra set of hands for athletic competition.
So then the person who's the athletic director at this point in time, also, they're the ones who are receiving the supplement, so we would do away with that and then just make them this person.
Administrator, right?
Which, I mean, they already are doing it.
Yes, and as far as doing away with the supplement, we'd have to have a conversation with the Talc Supplement Committee, but I think that would be the intention, is
Okay, that
to
makes-
look at how else that supplement money can be distributed, and possibly to add another assistant athletic director, or to look at, other clubs or activities, and how that money can be spent differently.
So can I follow up, if I may, on what she was saying? So
Yes.
the athletic director now, directors in the high schools are teachers getting a supplement. So this is saying that that position will become an administrative position in the schools. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
if you have 3 administrators now, you'll have 4.
Yes.
So, and we're also losing a teacher.
I think the position would be changed. I don't know that you would be losing that person. I mean, I think there's enough vacancies, but yes, I think what you're saying is correct.
Okay. So we'll gain an administrator and lose, okay, got it. Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn?
Okay, several questions here. First of all, in this district, the only one of these AD positions that I'm familiar with was at Esther High School, when the very renowned coach, Jeff Summer, was not only the athletic director, but he also was a coach at the same time. Is that currently the look, or that most of the high schools have, that the AD is also a coach of a particular sport at the same time?
No, there are a couple instances of that, and we've had discussion with the Talc Supplement Committee. I think again, because of the time that it takes to be the athletic director and the time that it takes to be a head coach, there was an interest in kind of moving away from that, unless there were special circumstances that would allow for necessary coverage. It's hard to be the soccer coach and on the sidelines for your soccer game, and at the same time running a basketball game in the gym. And so unless there were special arrangements made and approved through Mr. LaRosa's office, and the request was made by the school principal, I would say it's unusual for an athletic director to also be a head coach of a sport currently.
Okay, because what I'm trying to establish is I'm trying to get a picture of what the AD looks like and does now. And another part of that is, I was really surprised when I first read the minimum qualifications that that person, it's nothing there that the person should have been an athletic coach. And I kind of would like an explanation of why that was left out of minimums. So those two things, if you can give me a picture of what the AD does now, and I'm assuming that all of them have their own, when you think it's a teacher getting a supplement, athletic director.
I think Mr. LaRosa is coming up.
Okay,
to
also
clarify.
has his or her own secretary, so there's a whole office of it. So we need to keep that in mind, and I'm sure that the secretary, that's already an existing secretary to the AD, that's already an existing position, is it not?
Yeah, there is already an existing athletic director, or athletic secretary, sorry, that handles a lot of the processing of paperwork related to student eligibility and competitions.
Because that's a huge part of it. I remember, the secretary played a huge role. So, Mr. LaRosa, you can answer my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
About a snapshot of what it looks like.
Yes. So one of the reasons why in the job description it doesn't require them to have athletic coaching experience is because what's happening with this position, I mean, unknown when Coach Summer was in it, over the years, this position has evolved into more of an athletic administrative picture instead of a coach, athletic director concept. And so one of the reasons why the coaching piece wasn't in the job description is because one of the most sought after college majors right now is a sports management major. And I actually had a young lady that was an intern for me in the fall from FGCU, and one of our ADs that we had in one of our schools was a sports management major out of Florida, the University of Florida. So as the scope of the job has changed, again, from when Coach Summer did it, and Coach Summer was very good at it, they've turned, their work that they have done has really turned into more administrative type work. And what also is evolving with the job is becoming more of a year-round position, and they're having to work through the summer, and right now their contract really isn't through the summer, but they're doing it, okay? And the FHSAA is talking now about creating what they're going to call a scholastic season, which would be the month of June, where high school basketball teams can compete in these showcase tournaments. And so they're representing their schools, and the FHSA is sanctioning them. So the kids have to have all the GPA requirements, all the eligibility requirements. Well, that's all going on in the summertime. Well, somebody has to police that. Okay, so their job over the years has, as we're adding more sports and high school sports are becoming year-round, their job has really broadened, and it's became more of an administrative type position.
Okay, may I
Yes.
ask? Okay. So, in other words, it's not going to be the coach of each sport, but it's going to be the AD that polices GPAs and that sort of thing. I think that's a good thing, because back in the really old days, before all the computers, every week I'd have those football coaches in. Our star running back, he's not doing well in English, that
Sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all right, so that makes sense, what you say, and that really helps me to understand what the issues are. And, I know I was judging it a lot, mostly just from what I knew
Yeah,
from the one
and as I said, all the stuff that we deal with today with workouts in the summer and the heat-related illness, that all has to go through them.
Okay.
But they're not working, but they have to go and do it, because they're not going to turn their back on it. And so it's become a year-round responsibility now, and that's what part of this is all about.
Okay, and that really helps a lot. And I'm just going to add, are you looking at no pass, no play? You should. Anyway, I'm done.
Okay, well, that's really not our decision.
I
That's
just
a
had-
higher governing body.
I had to say it because
Okay.
I pushed it when I was at Estero.
Okay.
Because of some incidents, and there was George Clover looked at me like I'm nuts, and it actually works, and I guess I'm thinking that, and I don't know what states, is it banned in Florida?
There's nowhere in Florida that I know that's doing it. And just to kind of
Done
give you.
in Texas, and it was very effective.
Yeah.
I know, I'm off topic, so I'll.
And just to give you a little bit more background on this, our neighbors to the north, this is how the athletic directors down there are classified. Manatee County is going to this same concept. Hillsborough County, it's where their athletic directors are at. And so it's the direction we're going in because the scope of the job is changing. And so we're trying to stay pace with everyone else.
Thank you, and forgive me for my no pass, no play is a good thing statement.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Gittens?
I have a question that, looking at the minimum qualifications with valid interscholastic athletic, all that stuff, and the Lean Six Sigma certification. So we're really, or are we, kind of eliminating some of the current people that are working as ADs? Do we have very many of them that have Lean Six Sigma and NI quadruple A certification? Are we kind of leaving them out of this?
So we are requiring a certification. It's a national certification through the National Federation of High School Sports. It's called a Certified Athletic Administrators Association. When I came into this job 4 years ago, we had nobody with this certification. After this coming weekend, we will have 12 of the 15 that have this certification. I've been very proud of the group.
sitting AD?
Yes, I've been very proud of their efforts to get this done. And so it is requirements. If you have a brand new person come in, it's just like when somebody comes in and they're on a temporary certificate, because the CAA certification you cannot sit for the exam until your third year of being in the position, because there's a practicum piece that you have to fulfill, and it takes you about 2 years to finish the practicum portion, and then you have 5 courses that you're taking over that period also. And so then it's a 3-year process is what it is. So anybody new coming in, we would work with them so in 3 years this would be the case, that they have that certification.
How many, I'm wondering how many of the 12 also have that Lean Six Sigma, because that's a pretty rigorous,
Right.
academic.
The Lean Six Sigma certification is preferred on, I believe, all district job descriptions at this point. I think, as Mr. LaRosa said, the athletic administration specific supplement, we added, the certification, we added a supplement for that a couple of years ago in an effort to entice some of our current athletic directors to begin pursuing that. I think, like you said, the expectation is not necessarily that people have that coming in, but they have a willingness to be able to work towards that, since it's a preferred requirement rather than a required
mandatory.
qualification.
But it's also under minimum, though.
Yes.
So that kind of, you're saying it's a minimum qualification, but it's preferred is kind of, which one is it? So, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Patrica?
I don't know how much I missed. Were there a lot of questions?
No.
Not too many.
Okay, so was it just Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Gittens, or did I
Yes.
miss? Okay, good. I don't feel like I missed a lot then. Thank you for bringing this forward. It's really important that we start to treat our athletic directors like the professionals that they are and the administrators that they are. But I do have a couple of questions. This is not the equivalent of being an assistant principal, is that correct?
It's going to be more in the line of the coordinators that we have in the school district. we have coordinators down here, we have different coordinator positions throughout the district, so it's going to be more in line with that.
Okay, so people have come to me with questions. Would this person be able to seamlessly step into another AP role in a school? And I'm not sensing that the qualifications for both are the same. And so I guess I'm wondering, why are we calling this Director Athletics and Activities instead of Coordinator Athletics and Activities? Wouldn't that make more sense? Because Director has a different connotation at the district level than a coordinator does. Coordinator makes more sense in my brain and when you look at an org chart.
I think some of the naming convention has to do with their called athletic directors most places, even though, like you're saying, it is at a coordinator level. There are some differences in terms of the minimum qualifications with this and an assistant principal position in terms of education and certification. So it's not not to say that someone couldn't move between those two positions, but it's something that they would have to have those additional, ed leadership certification and a master's degree in order to move into, let's say, an APC position.
Right, so the ed leadership piece is really important, and I think I'm saying that out loud so people understand that that's not a requirement of this job. I personally would feel more comfortable if it was coordinator, athletics and activities. Again, it makes more sense in terms of our structure here at the district. What is the, I need to say that until I joined the FHSAA board, and I want to say I'm in my 5th year there now, when I first joined that board, it became immediately apparent to me that athletic directors are amongst the hardest working people in a building. They are frequently the first people there and the last to leave. And really the attitude that I've seen them embrace is that they're the host. So think about inviting someone to your home and making sure that the floor is clean and the bathroom is clean and the driveway is cleared of clutter or whatever. The athletic director really takes the school on like their home, and they're the host, and they want everything to be wonderful for everyone that comes into that building for that event in an evening. And again, frequently that requires being the first in the building in the morning and the last to leave at night. They work tremendously long hours, and they do it because they love kids and they love sports, but they also have families. And I mean, I know I personally have gone to a lot of other kids' sporting events and not seen my own kids play as a result of that. And that was by choice for me. I mean, it is literally a requirement of their jobs that they be at other children's sporting events instead of their own children's events. I think it's really important that we recognize them for this, but I think it's also really important to recognize you, Mr. LaRosa. Since you've been in this position as a district athletic director, you have brought professionalism to the position in each school that I'm not sure existed there before, by raising the bar and having expectations and putting plans in place and providing all of these people with solid experience-based guidance in their roles. And I feel like we're on the cusp of doing some great things athletically in Lee County, and this is a huge step toward achieving that. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Board members, any other questions or comments for Mr. LaRosa or the rest of the team?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So then we have the program manager, technical colleges. Any questions or comments regarding that job description?
Board Member Fisher, if I could just start out a little bit, maybe answer some of the questions that came forward to me.
Okay.
In your board docs, executive content, we put together a little bit of an administrative organizational chart. If you don't have that, I have copies here. I could get passed over to you real quick. So about 2 years ago, and we recognized at the post-secondary there's not a lot of job descriptions that fit post-secondary. We're growing quickly. We're trying to stay up and stay paced with the other technical colleges throughout the state. So about 2 years ago, we the board approved and adopted 5 new job descriptions. That started out with the Director of Technical Colleges. We were using the principal's job descriptions. Those KSAs, those knowledge, skills, and abilities do not fit. For us, it was hard to attract people to come into that and hold them accountable for these type of positions, leadership positions, these high-stake positions. So we had that. An Associate Director of Technical Colleges was adopted. Bookkeeping, post-secondary, because of the financial aid that's coming in. We had financial aid specialists, post-secondary. That's different than the K-12 financial aid that job descriptions that are out there, and a bursar job description, which is they're distributing those funds to the students, recording them for our yearly internal audits and the audits we get from FLDOE and then USDOE that we get every year. So we were successful in adopting those. So what you have in front of you now today is we've been working with Human Resource since September of last year. We found 2 areas that one is a reclassification. That is the Business and Financial Services Manager. That is a current person that is sitting in that position. The person that sits in that position now is using the generic business analyst position that the school district has. What this employee does has nothing to do with any job description that we have right now in the school district. We did some research around the state. We got with some of the other flagship counties. That's Manatee, Manatee Tech, Sarasota, Collier County, and them, and said, what are you doing for anyone that has oversight of all of your financial aid employees, who has oversight of the bursars to make sure that this information is being recorded right and disseminated correctly, and all of our state reporting for all 3 of our campuses. And it was an easy find. We stole this from, put it all together, and it fits underneath us, but the other schools or the other school districts already had this, and this is what they called it. We had it fit for us. Right now, we have an employee that oversees 10 employees. The current job description does not match. The job description that is used right now, and there is not one in the school district for this employee, there's nothing that mentions anything over oversight for federal title, any of our funds we get, our Pell funds, our VA funds, all that oversight that we have to do. So this is really capturing the remaining job description that we feel that is very critical for us to get all of our arrows pointing right, as we did the other 5 2 years ago. This is another one that we feel that is critical, that we get a job description that matches those duties, and then be able to hold someone accountable for those duties when you start talking about high stakes financial aid, and also our state reporting. Some of the questions that came to me is about the position. This position is right now is a shared position. All 3 of the campuses share this position. We pay for that. We share that responsibility within our own budget. And they works directly for the senior director, but once it goes to a certain location, if it's Cape Coral Technical College, then at that point, Director Peace and this employee will work and engage in that, and then afforded the information that is there, so we're all on the same page. I was asked also some questions about budget, how it is. This is all coming from our fee monies that we collect. None of these positions come from anything from the general fund whatsoever. It's our fund that we get. It's our workforce development fund. We have a very healthy reserve, which is our reserve. It can only be used for us. We make that commitment each year when we live within our budgets. Not only the 3 schools, the Career Tech Ed and Director Davis and Dunbar Community School, we share those funds that come in. The funds that you make stay at your school. So this reclassification position would meet within the current funds that we have. We are not asking for any more monies. That would be a fit that the schools would work together to make sure we're not asking for any more for this reclassification. So that would be for the first one, and I didn't know I was going to have questions, then I could move to the second job description.
Ms. Gittens?
Yes, So my question is seeing where this fits. This person, the manager program, and it says technical college, but they report to the director of technical colleges.
That would be the second one. That's not the one I'm describing right now. The reclassification is Business and Finance Services Manager for the technical colleges. That's the one that has 10 employees currently, all financial aid, all bursting and reporting and so on. I haven't had a chance yet or the opportunity to talk about the program manager, which is a new job description as well, and we do not have any, that is not a reclass. That is a new position for us.
Okay, then I jumped the gun on that. So the one you're talking about is the business and financial.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be located at the district?
No, we actually have an office because of the daily activity. Her office right now is at Fort Myers Technical College because of the space. We have enough space there for that. It's important that she is working with our financial aid team. She visits right now every week. She'll go to Cape Coral Technical College once a week. She comes to the Public Service Academy once a week to work with those bursars. She is working obviously at Fort Myers Technical Colleges. She works with our internal audit teams, and then she's working with US DOE and Florida DOE when these funds are getting distributed. On top of those duties, she also is our state reporter, the only one that we have in our technical colleges. To all of our state reporting, all of our funding, all of our co-compliance, she does that. And we do not have a job description that fits that, and that's what we are describing for you today.
And I, applaud you for doing it based on past experiences.
Yes, ma'am.
That this would keep us out of.
Yes, ma'am. This is really the final piece with the other job descriptions we did. With those employees that were doing these positions before had job descriptions had nothing to do with federal financial aid. And it was tough to hold someone accountable or attract a person to do this position. So we corrected that 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago, with those directors from principals. And this is the final piece, an overview of supervisory, because right now she has 10 employees, and we know when we do the extension campus, somebody will stay at the current Fort Myers Technical College, and more will have to go out to that. So we're going to be adding over the periods of years when we build another school.
So this person, though, will be responsible for all of that financial aid and all four.
She's a hard
both
worker, yes.
campuses. And, well, three.
Three now.
For that one, and
It'll still be three because if the current plan goes as we proposed, the Public Service Academy would go to the Fort Myers Tech. It would always be three because that's just replacing. We're getting a new building for Fort Myers Technical College. That's the way I sell it to the community.
And when you say industry certification, financial, like CPA, what?
There are multitude. There's a bursar certification. There is a financial aid certifications and so on. So those positions, there's certifications that are out there that this person already has.
And I know you have looked at this pay grade 11 as to why it should be, but the responsibility and the financial responsibility on the shoulders of this person, I don't know, I'm just.
When we worked with Human Resource, we went out and did a market rate. I provided what this exact job description that fits their school models that we went around the state. And we talked to all the directors. We usually have monthly meetings and so on, and said, who has models like this? And we all share, together. When they did the market study, and I'll let.
This is what came out?
This is pretty much what is coming up to stay competitive. To stay competitive with our neighboring counties.
Oh, I'm not thinking that it's high. I'm thinking it's low.
If you, yeah.
I'm thinking if you're going to attract someone and say you're responsible for all of this.
I think at this point it's a comfort zone for us.
No, I know they have people working for them.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
That's just a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility. I will tell you we're very successful, and I think the internal audit teams, USDOE and FLDOE, will also echo that with their yearly reports that they've been giving us.
As long as it's market what everybody's doing, then we're okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Giovanelli.
Well, actually, that was one of the questions you pointed out that I was one to bring up. So this is probably not, since you're telling me this present position, which it doesn't have this title and pay grade, has 10 employees that they supervise. Is that correct?
They have oversight for, yes.
Okay, so I am actually agreeing with Ms. Gittens, because that's a pay 11, where and this is where I would need HR confirmation and superintendent. The director of athletics is a pay grade 12, and who do they supervise? And I can't answer, you can't answer that. That's a
Outside my wheelhouse, so I'll let.
So,
Well, will coach.
So I think you all are touching on a couple things that historically we've been trying to work on and work through as we bring job descriptions forward for revisions. And I think those two things are pay transparency and then equity amongst our positions from an internal standpoint. Historically, a lot of that work has been done piecemeal, and so that's why you might see things in job descriptions or in salary schedules that make you kind of scratch your head and wonder, why is this way? Different administrations have started the work or focused on certain areas. There hasn't been the same comprehensive approach, but it is something that we're looking at, and that moving forward we plan to continue to address. I think as Mr. Everly said, we did look at what not only our ERI salary assessor software had for the market rate for comparable positions based on Florida and education as the industry, organizations of our size, all of the controlling factors that we have. We also reached out to and looked at some of the specific districts that he mentioned, and were able to come up with these numbers. And then in a lot of positions, we do also look at that and say, I think kind of to your point, sometimes the market rate reporting lags behind, and we know that, our internal equity issues, we could end up with a leapfrog situation if you have someone making more than their boss is making. That's something that we try to be cognizant of, so that we're moving all positions kind of in a continuum.
okay, but if we're creating a job description now, I don't see why we shouldn't be compensating somebody appropriately. And if this person has 10, supervises 10 employees, I have a hard time with that. And when you have an athletic director that's going to go to a 12, and they're not really have any supervision really on, it's a more administrative. I'm having a hard time with that equitable part of it. And
I think the athletic directors will be responsible for supervising athletic coaches and athletic trainers and some of that other staff.
They don't ultimately control, that's just coaching. They don't control if they have a job tomorrow. Technically, because that's the principal of the school. So,
As an administrator, they may have the ability to make more decisions about hiring and firing of coaches, evaluation of coaches. That's one of the reasons for the change.
Okay.
The other thing is, I believe that the associate director is at that similar to a coordinator level. So to elevate this position above that would be one of those leapfrog scenarios that I was describing, where we have salary compression stuff. I think there are a number of positions that we would like to look at paying more, but trying to do that and maintain as much internal equity and structure in place as we can.
So our associate director positions for the technical college is a 12, and then the directors are 13. Currently is how we have it. We, working with human resource, we saw this is not, they don't have hire, fire responsibilities, and so on. And the associate director obviously has a lot more, and gets paid a lot more for it. The structure is there for that. So we saw this as 11 for us to, but I can't answer about the athletic director. That's outside of my scope.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
And then I can move to the final one, if you want me
Okay.
to.
Go ahead, Mr.
So
Everly.
for both of these job descriptions, we would not be looking to do this. It would be tied to the upcoming budget. The reclassification of this, if it's board approved, would be for our upcoming budget. So we talk about the program manager. That's the next one for the technical colleges. That is a brand-new job description. We went around to the districts, again, our flagship districts that do a very good job with their technical college systems that we've been talking with and getting on board with more. And they ran into the same thing that myself and the technical college leadership did. We go from teacher or a high SPALC to associate director. We had no succession planning whatsoever for technical colleges. I'm a firm believer of succession planning. I was a product of succession planning in my first career, so I understand that. I think we, as the leadership you have right now at the technical colleges, understand that we're all not going to be there eventually one day. You could get pulled, anything could happen. So we were looking at positions to where we have currently an associate director's position. Fort Myers Technical College about 4 years ago had 2 associate directors on that campus because of budgetary restraints, and we hit some hard times. We had a retirement of one and did not fill it. So we're trying to be good stewards of our funding, and we went around and saw what models else are out there, and we found a program manager. And these program managers really we have a nursing coordinator for those skill positions, but we don't have anyone really having oversight of our critical, our high impact programs that are non-health related. We're looking to add a program manager that oversees our programs, also allows the ability to have some succession planning in place for if there is an associate director or a director's position, that they get these skills of leadership and so on with that. And it's just a pathway to leadership. We're growing, as you guys know that. We're going to be adding another school. Part of this job description is we talked about Cape Coral may not look to do this at all this year. They may wait till 23 until the new programs that you have been seeing, the automotive and the marine mechanics and all that, and add more programs. Mr. Peace may just wait until that time. Fort Myers is a little bit more probably need-based right now because of the size and the renovations and the extensions that are going now, and I am not looking for this at my campus. I do not need this right now on my campus. What we're trying to do is set up people for success. We're trying to, knowing that once these this expansion campus goes on, that we're going to have to leave some kind of a program manager position, someone that is not making as much money. We do not need all the skill sets of a associate director to remain back at the current Fort Myers Technical College for those nursing programs and all those programs that are going to stay. We can have someone that is more into the weeds, if you're following like a military approach, more like a mid-level supervisor. You're looking, and that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create some succession planning here, and this position, if approved, we would not look at this until we would tie it to our budget. Again, it would not come from the general fund. It comes from our funds. And if the school decides they want to do it, they will work with the funds that they have allotted to them. We're good stewards with that funds that come in. We put a healthy amount every year when we get our funds into our reserve, because we know when the new extension campus is built, we're going to need that money to help pay for positions and whatever else, or if there's ever a rainy day that comes back after the economy. So we're just trying to create some succession planning. We could fill these positions right now of associate directors, but that is not the right thing to do with our funds, and it would be too high of a level for that. We're looking for someone at the mid-level to learn these abilities, to get more into the weeds of programs, work directly with that school leadership.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens.
So the question I have on this program manager piece, are you looking to eventually have a specialist or a generalist of your programs? In other words, is this person going to eventually, it mentions like adult and community programs. So this is going to be the person that represents and sells and markets all the programs in general? Or is this going to be someone for technology, someone for culinary, someone for,
And that's a good question. When we looked at what the other technical colleges, because in how we felt inside ourselves from our own leadership team, we want this to be very general, because we want to be able to be flexible. We may be offering marine mechanics now. Let's just say we don't need that next year. I'm not hiring a program manager for marine mechanics. We're making it flexible that not only are they going to oversee certain programs to alleviate those associate directors to do more of a broader, a bigger scope to pay more attention, because we have associate directors right now on these campuses are doing things are so far into the weeds because we don't have a mid-level position that they're really not concentrating on what they are supposed to be doing more of. So the question is it's flexible, and it's not just programs. It would be projects. We have so many expansion projects or things that get thrown at us by the community that we would take an individual that is awarded this position and give them a project. And they may go speak to a group with us. They may come to the Verizon Council instead of Todd, John, and Charlie. Right. And that, if it's a general, if it's down into a program, and start getting them out into the community, start engaging the community more on what we do with our leadership teams. We're growing, as you guys know. I would say this board is very supportive of what we're doing, and we're growing. We got the arrows pointing in the right direction, and I'm just a firm believer that this is not only internal for people to give them an opportunity to move up, but it's also the right thing we feel to do to get them involved in the community with programs and projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Everly, for the description of both of those job descriptions, and I'm very happy that we are moving forward with the other flagship districts in the state and are on par with other tech colleges. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Ms. Gittens?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's not for them, this is moving on, but is it possible when we have positions like this that are presented, job descriptions, that there be somewhat, besides just saying to be determined, somewhat of a timeline as to the need to fill it and the timeline as to when we expect, and not holding anyone to the fire, but in other words, this positions that we just talked about, that a goal would be in the next year, the next 2 years, or something somewhat concrete without cementing you in. Is that clear question to you?
I could use more clarity. Could just reframe that and do just a question, just so I can.
Well, when we receive a new position that's presented to us, it always just says to be determined.
To be determined.
So most of them say that when they're presented. So what I'm asking is, whoever creates that position, like the ones we just heard, there's a thought in mind. There's a thought that, in the next couple of years, we would like to have this. We're doing this, this, and this. And just to give somewhat of a, within the next year or the next 2 years or something that gives it a little more concrete. Because what ends up happening, it comes before us and we say, okay, and the next thing you know, next month we've hired somebody.
Yeah.
So maybe a broader picture. And I see Will coming back, and he's the HR guru.
I was actually communicating with Mr. Doting via text.
I think this is on. I think the TBD part that comes out in front of the job description, that's normally the JDE number, which is the identifier that we use for knowing what that job description is so that we can track the changes throughout. I think as far as what the intent is for filling the position, we've had some discussion recently and looked at what the state does in terms of, they have a distinction between an authorized, an established, and an approved position, which basically says, is there budget allocation, is there HR approval, is there both? And that's something that I think we've been discussing kind of behind the scenes for a while, so that we would know when a position is a reclass, when a position is a new position where there's going to be an appointment coming in the future, that sort of thing. So I think that maybe addresses the underlying concern that you have there.
It does, because it just seems like you know, we keep getting positions and they go in the book, you know, we've got another one approved for the future and another one approved for the future. Some kind of pre-forecasted planning says we need this position approved because in 2 years, we're going to grow expeditiously in this area as we're adding these 3 programs. So we need, are you following?
Yeah, one of the things that we've also done in our job description review is cleaning up the current book of job descriptions. And at one point, I want to say that we were maintaining 800 or so board-approved job descriptions.
Right.
And we brought 150 or so of those all at once to be sunset. And those were positions that had not been filled for 5 years, had not been advertised for 3 years. And so that's allowed us to have a smaller grouping of job descriptions to look at so that we can focus on some of the classifications, creation of job families, and I think, like you were saying, be more responsive and move from just backwards looking to being able to project out what the needs might be and have some of the job descriptions in place before we get there.
Right, and having it a plan that we're going to add this, so in 2 years we're going to need this, and even classifying those 800 by timeline. This is something we don't see happening for the next 5 years. This we look at happening in the next 2. So, anyway, thank you for
Yes,
that.
Ms. Vaughn.
Since Ms. Gittens brought that up, as you're thinking ahead on some of these things, you know, I've always been big on the organizational chart, and I find that to be the biggest problem with some of these job descriptions, because it'll just say something vague about, you know, the supervisor or other person or something vague. I know I would feel a whole lot better looking at any of these new positions. Well, where does this fit in our organizational chart? And frankly, that's never really been accomplished. It's been something I've been saying for a long time in terms of staying current with that chart. But, you know, it might be helpful to have it kind of built in. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, and we have worked to make sure that the reports to function on the job description aligns with a current existing title, or says, you know, not everyone's going to report to the superintendent, so it might say superintendent or designee. But we've worked to align that, because before they would just say designee or just supervisor.
Well,
and so I think you're right. That's been a part of the cleanup that we've been doing.
Great, because that really would give all of us, I think, a better handle on where exactly this fits in. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Rickenbacker, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Savage, Ms. DuBois Bruno, and LaTanya. This is your quarterly April update for construction capital projects. We've divided it up a little bit differently into major capital projects, renovations, and tried to group them up to reduce the slides you all had to look at. So some of the new construction projects, you'll see the slides, the status of the projects. I have some written notes I'd like to tell you a little bit about it as well. Right now, G. Weaver HIPS, we're in a holding pattern for some financing with the pre-K system. The board has approved the increase for the design and the expanded scope, so we're just waiting for the pre-K program to allow that additional design money to be released so we can start the design, issue a notice to proceed. And we are closing on that strip of property you approved on May 10th, I believe, first week of May there. So that'll wrap that up, and then we can begin aggressively putting all that expansion on that site. Elementary Gate J groundbreaking, or Amanecier, you folks were all at that. I hope it went well for you. I was sorry I couldn't attend, but I had a personal reason I couldn't attend. That's on cue. We had our first official project meeting today, and based upon how you go tonight, we will be including the principal to be to every weekly project meeting in the design. So that person will also be involved like we do at every one of our fresh projects. Trans East, I don't know if any of you get out to the Buckingham Trans East facility, but we are vertical. We have our structural steel and our framing. Should be complete in about a week, and we can start the skinning of that building. So that, too, is on schedule. Renovation projects. These are inclusive of the latest Bonita Springs. Now, I have an appointment at Capital Committee to discuss Bonita Springs per Board Member Morgan's request in terms of how far we go with the RFQ work that had recently been given out. So I'll be talking to Capital Committee about that tomorrow. And we will be developing a Phase 1 total project cost budget to come to the board to you shortly. County Public Education Center, if you haven't heard the noise, then that means we've passed by you and we're in another section of the building. But we're just about done. We've completed all the demolition. We have about another 6 to 8 weeks of what we call the final cap sheet. So we're wrapping up that program. It shows that on that schedule that it should have been done May 7th. There was a change order that extended it. We had a 3 to 4 month delay initially in the project gaining materials. This was one of the first projects where roofing materials had become a problem. So we've extended that via change order to be substantially complete on 8/5 of 22, but we will beat that in about another 6 to 8 weeks. The next item, Lehigh Acres Middle School, the old Lambs, which will be VPAA. That is on track. I don't know if any of you have been through that building, but the furniture's been ordered, and that's on schedule to be open for August 10th, start of school. And let's see. Bonita Springs, we're going to review the scope, and we just received our final CO for the new Lambs building next to J Elementary. So we completed all of our CO requirements. We had a TCO, but we have all our permitting, and that is complete. Next slide is remodeling projects. Cape Coral Technical College, we are getting ready to start with a Phase 1 to bring that to the board. That is for that program that the previous presenter spoke about. That'll come to you for Phase 1 funding and design. Fort Myers Technical College, we have received the GMP. We've gone through it 2 or 3 times now. There have to be some corrections to make it meet our needs so we can bring it to legal for review, and then ultimately to you folks for a Phase 2 approval. Unfortunately, we're way over budget on that project. Right now, inflation is hitting us greater than we've ever seen. As I spoke to you about quadruple A before that got pulled, we were at about 15%. We had budgeted $12.2 million for FMTC, and the GMP just came in at 16. So if you add our design fees, we're at about $19 million. And again, I'll be bringing that to the Capital Committee for funding approval tomorrow afternoon. And if they tell me to proceed, then I'll bringing a Phase 2 forward to you folks. Riverdale High School. Right now, we had anticipated doing some summer work out at that school. Unfortunately, due to permitting with South Florida Water Management and long lead times on materials, the concrete pipe that handles the stormwater, we call it RCP, is now a 23 to 26 week fabrication duration. So we can't even get our fabrication and shop drawings going until the GMP. I come to you with a phase budget. So unfortunately, that work will not be able to occur this summer. So we're meeting with the design team. We're reforecasting our schedule, and we'll meet with the school-based staff and come up with a schedule that moves us through into the winter and into the spring of next year with that scope of work. It's a large parking area, so it's going to be quite a feat to try and coordinate that and not disrupt school activities, but we'll figure it out. Let's see, Franklin Parks Trailer Complex. Right now I have a GMP for, it's going to be a split Phase 2 for the trailers set up, that staging school that goes across from Jane Stevens. In my Phase 1, which you had approved, I had put in $2.6 million for the trailer erection. That's $600,000 more than I've ever asked on any site for a trailer setup, 30 trailers. The GMP right now, they're estimating, is about 3.6. So we're working on trimming that down. Now, this is for trailers, mind you, but the cost of metals, PVC piping, and conduit, and the labor rates are going through the roof. So we are looking at things, for instance, to reduce the canopy cost. We're getting permission from the principal to go out to Franklin Parks Elementary now, this summer, and take that canopy in its entirety and haul it over and use it for the portables in an effort to save some funding. So, you know, at that point in time, we don't get too many rainy days between August and official dry season. So we're hoping that we can accommodate. But right now, again, inflation and availability of materials is through the roof. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but everybody is experiencing this. This is a sample of the Riverdale High School, the Plan D that was approved by you folks, reviewed by the school-based staff and executive staff. So this was an intent. You'll see the parking lot in the front of the school. We're going to do the bus parent drop-off, move a staging light, and then create that large parking. The county was good enough to take a couple tennis courts and remove them from their program so we could have additional parking spaces. So you can see everything is sardine on that site. There was a second softball field. We've removed that and turned that into the practice field in preparation for all of our work out in that area. So everything is being shoehorned on that site, and it's going to be a tough site, but we'll get it figured out. So we did Dunbar High School, and everyone who remembers that build, that was a tough build. We had kids on campus while we basically tore out all of the innards of the school and built a brand new building in the center of the complex. So I'm confident we can work with Riverdale as well. This is just a quick listing of all of our special projects. These are some repiping projects. These are the single point entry projects, all on one sheet. Feel free to ask any questions about that you want. I will give you a heads up. We do have in our program freezer cooler replacement. We had anticipated about 5 schools on this list getting done this summer. None of the freezer and coolers will be delivered in time because of manufacturing delays with the freezer coolers. So we're going to move forward, unless I'm directed otherwise, because it's food service money, to have those fabricated and store them here at the factories, willing to store. They have a bonded warehouse. And we may have to engage in what we did years ago when you had a freezer cooler go out, where you rent a freezer cooler truck, park it outside of the cafeteria, and we replace the freezer cooler during the school year, and they just have the inconvenience that they have to go in and out. So again, those are yet to be worked out, but again, another material problem due to the market that we're in. And again, special projects continued on the next page, so I tried to consolidate that. And you'll see single point entry projects on the following page. These are all the statuses of the jobs we're doing, and these are all going to hit big and heavy this summer. About 22 of my projects will be working. And that concludes the, also we had provided you, I'll take questions on that, I also provided you the change order memorandum. If you have any questions on that, let me know.
Okay. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you always for doing such a great job. Really appreciate all your work. Can you please just, the special projects, these are the list of items that the schools send in to us, and then we prioritize them. Is that correct? That's where?
No, I called it special projects. There were so many slides and it was so convoluted. So I took some of the smaller projects, 100 grand, 200 grand, the single point entries, the kitchen projects, the repipes, and just put them on slides to try and consolidate it and not waste your time.
Thank you.
But it's a lot.
Yeah.
Is that it, Ms. Jordan?
Yes, thank you very
Ms.
much.
Giovanelli?
Appreciate that.
So actually, this may not be a question for you, it may be more for the superintendent. So like these delays, and then are delaying, technically they're delaying schools or the attendance, the students in schools, because we had planned for X amount of students, and maybe now if these jobs are not going to be done in time, that could change things. Correct? Am I correct?
No, you're heading down the right path.
Okay,
We haven't experienced it
really where I'm
yet.
going with this is the planning position. Would they work with you on these projects as well in coordination with our school planning for students? And that, like I said, that might be I'm just trying to.
Well, let me explain to you right now. We've never realized that. One of my main concerns was the old Lambs or the VPAA, those seats in that building. I was very concerned as to if we didn't act, which the board did act, and we got that going, that I wouldn't have those seats in the fall. I'm not worried about the old Lambs or the VPAA. I'm confident that those seats will be available for start of school. J is going to be interesting. Now, one of what you have approved in your phase 1 for J is you've approved a shell package, which includes all of the windows, the roofing, which is long lead item. Windows are long lead, the generators, the switch gear. We're ordering those and splitting, because remember, your process was a phase 1 and a phase 2. I can no longer attain those two portions. I have to break out part of phase 2 and absorb it in phase 1 to get these long lead items in time. So we've done that with J. That's our mission. We're going to try and get those long lead items through shop drawing process and ordered so that all those materials show up in time for us to open those seats. But you are correct. There could come a point in time where the industry and the market, the way it is, we may have to have some serious discussions, but I don't know that I would get concerned right now. That's part of our job, to keep you and the superintendent and his team, advised of those and where those hits would come so that we could make those alterations, whether it be with student planning, assignment, or portables in certain areas to accommodate that.
Well, and I'm a realtor, so, I mean, we see that building a home now could be 2 years out, so they don't even want to go into contract now because we don't know what the prices will be in 2 years. So that's already affecting the market. It's a detriment, actually. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to be proactive and think about, coordination and pre-planning and being proactive instead of reactive, because we don't want to get to the end and not be able to finish it. That's
I agree.
Where, that's my concern. So that's why I was curious about the planning, that planning position, working with with construction to make sure that we can meet the deadlines. And if not, what at the school level, what are they going to be able to do regarding, their number of students?
Yeah, I'm happy to just say, you're right on point that really the process with planning, there's so much that goes into it, and it always starts with, do we have the land well in advance? Do we know what we need? Do we know which schools are being sunset? Do we know which ones are in the remodel? It's really one of the ways that it was kind of first introduced to me in operations was planning, construction, maintenance. Planning really helps us understand all the capacity we have, all the needs we have, all the growth that we have, everything related to where we may eventually need to support students. Then construction really builds those initial assets, and then maintenance really protects them for the life of that asset, which is at really minimum 50 years, but in some cases even up to 100 years. So there's just so much to it that goes into that process. It's just very powerful. It's too complex to go into every aspect of it, but I would say you're absolutely right that planning, sometimes they have to have a plan A, B, C, D. They have to have your primary contingency. They have to react. They have to have, and it's a moving target. As we've seen in our area, at one point the growth was one thing, and then we had a huge boom in the area where we had a lot of people moving to this area, drove up property values, pushed a lot of the opportunity, the affordability for families out in areas where we already had high growth, and now it's even more so. So it's a constant dynamic picture. That's why it's very data-centric as well, So anywho, it's just good points. Definitely portables. One of the challenges that Scott was mentioning is we don't have access to portables as readily as we used to with the supply chain shortage as well. So that gives you even one less option. Some districts are extremely reliant on portables for that temporary, like Orange, I think. Some of them, when you look at what as an overall percentage of their student stations that are housed in portables, we're very low comparatively to some districts that have far more portables deployed as a method of that piece. And it's a very unique conversation across the board.
Great. And so next, one more question. What is the status on the steel that we purchased and that we had for reserve?
I've been directed to purchase the steel and have it shipped from Missouri. We've already made preparations. It'll be over at Canal Street. So it will be quite a pile of steel. It represents 28% of the steel that would have been supplied to Quadruple A. That's how much was produced. And we're going to be working with all of our projects to incorporate that steel, not the ones that are right out of the gate, but in all the future projects that we're getting ready to move forward with, that steel will be incorporated into those designs and hopefully used up.
Great, thank you.
Now, you may get some calls because it's going to be some high stacking. It's a very large area, so we're going to start that process. It's supposed to be beginning on May 2nd, and Tina Silcox will be headlining, coordinating that delivery. I've met with Frederick and with Barbara, so we picked an area where it will go. We have plastic, we have cinder blocks to weight the plastic down to keep it somewhat weather protected, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gittens, then Ms. Vaughn.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, but they go fast. So on the G. Weaver pre-K edition, is it correct that the to be determined and the holdup is not us, it's the grant funding?
I don't want to speak to the funds. The board has approved the additional design money. The department that manages that money has also approved that money. Whoever they deal with, and I don't know those entities behind the curtain, had to give the final approval on that shift of funds to make up that additional design money. That in combination, which could have started me with the design, and the other piece of the puzzle was that small strip of land between the existing building, but I still could have begun the design and got all that work regardless of whether we owned the land at that time. So that we're just waiting for that funding to be released and move forward, and then I can put together a PO for that additional design, and we'll get this thing moving forward.
Okay, thank you. On Buckingham, and I was up there this week. I went up there Monday, and they've got quite a bit of the stuff up. It was interesting because when we asked about it before, we were told that it wouldn't be done till next year, but they're saying that it will be done in October or November of this year.
It's originally scheduled for August, but we had material delays.
Well,
So they're pushing pretty
One of
hard.
the meetings I asked about it, and the answer was next year, because I asked some other questions. But anyway, I'm glad that it's clarified. And can I ask the superintendent on that? Is there any way we can get a working television set for their area where they sit now? There's a television that does not work and has not worked for quite some time.
I will take that information down.
Please. They would love to have that in their area. You mentioned the trailers in James Stevens. I know at one point it was stated that you were taking the portables, the trailers from behind Lehigh Senior High School and moving them. Is that still the plan? And will that be all of them? Will there be some left, or?
It should be all of them.
And could you please repeat the dollar amounts that you gave for that? You mentioned.
Well, right now, I have in your budget, which you approved, the Phase 1, I had put $2.6 million in for trailers. Now, we are compiling estimates and bids for the trailer placement, and right now, we are seeing about $3.6 million. So that's the cost of inflation, moving dirt, asphalt, fencing, canopy installation, electrical, plumbing. So it's the point I'm trying to make there is I added $600,000 to that trailer setup for inflation. Normally I've done them all for $2 million or less.
Right.
And that still wasn't enough.
Right. Because I know we had discussed before that just to move one is like 50 grand to.
We're gonna,
And it's going up, so.
The principal is fabulous. She understands and works with us. So sometimes when I've got to break out the red pen to try and trim budget down, she's very understanding about that, so that's a positive. She's worked with us tremendously, so I'm appreciative of that. But I need to make you all aware that I know you had wanted a total project cost, a design cost, and a true total project cost. In today's environment and the lead times for materials, you're not going to get that. You're going to get multiple breakouts of purchasing of materials to meet schedule. For instance, you had a question, Ms. Gittens, last time. It was in the media that J was going to be $20 million.
That was my next
That was the shell package, the Phase 1. Right now, we're seeing where the Phase 2 for the interior fit out could be about 28 million. So what I'm saying is you're not getting a total project cost, which was what our plan was after Bonita, just because of the market and the way things are going. If we wait that long, it'll be escalated and you'll be 4 or 5 years out on schools.
And I get that, and that was my last question, talking about the process of phasing as opposed to having a total project cost. Simplistically, the way I see it is that we have to put something on the books as a budget. And it may be airy-fairy out there, and we say we're going to build this school for $55 million, but there's something on the books. And I think if we and the public all understand, we are putting this as a movable target, but a budget no less, somewhere to begin. And that we're working on this project in phases. And as each of those phases changes, like getting the equipment, getting the supplies, everyone will know that this bottom line is going to shift. But at least it's saying, this is where we started, we're working within it. As the changes come, we see why that moving target, that big picture. The problem with turning on the TV and seeing, well, they're building this a Montessori school and it's going to cost $24 million. And now you're already saying it's up to 28. Okay, so
Well,
the thing is, if we had something and everybody understands how things are moving up and down and costing more, but then we could also say and kind of forecast this school that we thought was going to be 55 is probably more than likely going to be 60. And I'm just saying to give people a clear picture.
well, just so I don't get the wrong numbers out there, in our 5-year capital budget plan, it is budgeted for $51 million for Amanda Sear. Okay? The $20 million was just the shell package. It was the part broke out, and there will be an interior fit out, which is additional. At this time, we're seeing about $28 million. So now you're at $48 million, plus you have FF&E and everything else. So you are correct. There's a very good chance that it's probably going to come in around 55. And I'll keep you abreast of that, and that will be adjusted, I would assume, with the finance department and budget department with things that they produce to you in terms of reports.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Single point entry projects. I see that we have 16 schools listed that are not completed, and it says substantial completion date, and they range in dates, but mostly July or August of this year. Can we count on those to be complete at the beginning of this school year?
Yeah, a lot of this, remember, I only have about 22 of the larger single point projects. That's why construction handle it. There's a lot of smaller single points that maintenance and security is working on. These contracts, the superintendent's been signing them relentlessly for the last 4 months. We've started this back in the fall. So some schools have been good enough that they've worked with us and we can get an early jump and an early start in there. Other schools have to wait till the school year is out. So our CMs have prepared, and we should have all the materials and everything necessary to do what we need to do as soon as summer pops.
Okay, and as everybody knows, it's an issue of safety and security. I noticed that Estero, where I used to teach, is on the list, but I don't see isn't Mariner the clone? I don't see it on the list, so wondering.
If Mariner isn't on the list, then it would be being done by possibly maintenance. I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
Okay, but I guess my point is, when they have pretty close to the same footprint of what needed to be done.
Things have happened over the years. There's a little difference in Mariner in terms of some kind of lobby.
Okay. Anyway, I'm just hoping, because we started these projects a long time ago, and I'm not saying, as you said, that it's all construction, because some of them were a lot easier than a big old open campus like Estero and some of the others, but
we should be prepared, and it's our normal summer work. When we go to disrupt a front office, we usually do that over the summertime.
Great. Okay, yeah, I'm just hoping they're all finally done.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rickenbacker.
Much. Have a good day.
And now I think we have our maintenance update. And I see Ms. Sedino and
team.
her team. Welcome this afternoon.
You want to tell her?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Savage, fellow colleagues. This afternoon, we will be sharing with you some of our capital project updates. With me today, I have Mr. Sean Brady and Mr. Chris Stuber. They are both maintenance services coordinators. And of course, you know me, Barbara C., from Director for Maintenance Services. For today's presentation, we are only bringing forward a subset of the projects we are currently working on for FY22. Just to give you an idea of the volume of work that we also have, we are probably sitting at about 100 capital projects that we are managing this year, on top of the day-to-day work orders that we have incoming for the department. The projects we will be discussing today are associated with chillers, paving, cabinetry, windows, walkway covers, and blinds.
In FY22, we have a total of, oh, it's not working. Sorry. In FY22, we have a total of 18 paving projects. 6 were associated with the tennis court resurfacing, and 12 of them were associated with seal coating and restriping. Out of those 6 tennis court resurfacing projects, 5 of them have been complete, which include Fort Myers High, Calusa Middle, Dunbar Middle, Diplomat Middle, and Mariner Middle. The last one that we're going to complete this summer will be Varsity Lakes Middle School. As for the seal coating projects, 7 of the 12 have been complete. 4 of the ones that we have POs for but are not complete are the 4 transportation compounds, Trans West, Buckingham, 6 Mile, and Trans Leonard. And we're just working with transportation staff for the logistics of that. Takes a lot to coordinate the moving of the buses and things like that. And those will be completed this summer.
This year we have a total of 17 paint projects. These are a combination of interior and exterior paint. At this time, we have 8 of the 17 complete, which we managed over our winter and spring break. The remaining 9 are scheduled to take place as soon as the students are let out this year. We have interior projects such as Spring Creek Elementary, Patriot Elementary, Varsity Lakes Middle, Edison Park Elementary, Fort Myers Middle, and Sunshine Elementary. These will include interior classrooms, some cafes, some gyms, all door frames, and also locker rooms at Varsity Lakes Middle. We have 2 exterior paint projects. Cypress Lake High School will be all outbuildings, including door frames. And we have Success Academy, which will include all of their buildings as well as window and door frames. We have 1 specialty project at South Fort Myers High, which is the auto shop. It'll be the anti-skid flooring and restriping of all safety lines.
As for cabinetry, we actually have 2 cabinet upgrade projects this year. One is at Orange River Elementary School, and the secondary is at Orange Wood. Orange Wood is 100% complete. And for Orange River, we currently have processed the purchase order. Materials are in order, and the work is scheduled to be completed by November of 2022. One of the blinds projects that we have completed this year is at Villas Elementary School. The existing blinds that were there were more of the vertical type. We have actually converted them to metal blinds, which will meet our fire and safety regulations. As for windows, we have a project concurrently taking place at Spring Creek Elementary School. It is a whole campus upgrade project. We are converting to the hurricane impact glass as we have demonstrated in the past. This project is 90% complete, and the area that we have remaining to complete is the front office. And this will also be completed during this summer break, so we're not disrupting the school operations at the front of the school. As far as the Tanglewood Elementary School walkway cover, this is actually involving an extension to the existing bus loop area. This will help expedite the pickup and drop-off of the students during those peak hours of the day. This project is 100% complete, so this is one of our accomplishments. As far as chiller upgrades, on our slide, I want to apologize. One of our projects here is actually completed. That one is, the one that is completed is our Manatee Elementary School. That is completed. We're just waiting for the building officials' certificate of completion. However, the 4 projects that are taking place, the reason we're doing them is because the coils are deteriorating. There's actually one unit at one of the locations that has a compressor that's in poor shape, and we've actually had to reuse one from an older unit and install it on this unit just to keep the system up and running. However, that's, one of the protocols that we can do and to keep the cycle, to keep the equipment moving. The other thing that we wanted to share with you are a few photographs. On the top left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see some photographs. On the left-hand side, it's the older chiller. In the middle photograph for Dunbar Middle School, we have the newer chiller. As you can see, these are massive units, and they do require crane services in order to be able to lift and reinstall them into the place where they were before. The third picture for Dunbar Middle School is the resurfacing of the tennis courts that actually was done for this facility. To the right of those photographs, we have Hector Caffaretta. This is a painting project that we had. The stairwell at the facility was suffering extreme rust, so there was some, a lot of prepping work that needed to get done, a lot of pre-treatment in order to preserve and restore the stairwell system for that location. To the bottom left, we have photographs of the Orangewood Elementary School cabinetry project. As you can see, this is following the same standard that we are implementing at the other facilities, base white and tub cabinets, and we give the campuses the opportunity to select their Formica colors and backsplash in order as an accent for their location. Then the final pictures that we have there is for Orange River Elementary School. This is an exterior painting project that took place at the facility. So that completes our presentation for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. Ms. Jordan.
First, thank you again. Always good to see you, and thank you, gentlemen, for first time coming here. We really appreciate you coming and sharing with us. And I just wanted to say, Hector, that is our only school that is not really a brick and mortar school, correct? It's the fabrication of that school is completely different than any of our other schools in the county.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because when you just said about the rust, I was like, that's why it's rusted, because of the way that building is made.
It's a different complete configuration when the way it's structured and put together.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I was just making sure that I was not losing my mind, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for this excellent update and for the work that you consistently do.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate your time this afternoon. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we have Franklin Park Design and Rebuild update. And we have Kathy Ebaugh, Joel de Guzman, and Javier Salazar joining us today.
Big TV there. I don't know. What is that big TV? Oh, wow. That's in there with a monitor.
For health reasons, we're going to ask that our consultant be able to stand and not sit.
It's just that I'm not used to presenting sitting down. It's, we want to get excited, so I got to get ready to move. And, you know.
Absolutely.
Do we have to get up and do anything?
No, I'll do all the excitement for you. That's okay.
I can do it sitting.
There you go.
All right. Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Savage. I'm Joel de Guzman, the coordinator for district planning. We have here the design team from RG Architects, the lead architects for the Franklin Park Elementary School rebuild. We have Javier Salazar and Natalie Garcia. And we're here to give you an update on where the project sits in advance of the upcoming community meeting scheduled for May 11th next month. And with that, I'll take it. Let Javier take it away.
Perfect. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having us. And I really mean, I want to stand up because I want to show the excitement that we have on the, for this project, because not to be selfish, but this is the type of project that every architect, dreams of. This is the one that is making a meaningful impact because number one, it's a community school, and number two, you're taking an existing school. We're not inventing a school. We're not creating a new school culture. We're building on what's already there. So that only makes it that much more exciting. I think if we go back to the very first picture, I think this is a very simple summary of the process. You can see representation from the school district in that picture. You can see staff from the school in that picture. You can see kids drawing and explaining what they drew on that picture. And a few hours after that, it was the community involved, talking about what was important for them and what was not. This is even before the project went out for RFQ, even the design team was selected or anything like that. So I commend the district for having that approach because this is what makes projects successful, having that interaction with all stakeholders. So if we go to the next page, this is just a very simple agenda. We just want to give you an overview of the process, where we started and where we are right now, and all the different parts within that make up the program. So let's go to the first item, which is the project introduction. Next slide. Just one back. So the design team process, we're just going to illustrate how we got to where we started, to where we are, and where we're going. And we think that this is important because we want to understand, we want you guys to understand where the feedback from the community, from the staff, from the district comes into play and how that helps shape the design product. And then number two, we want to make sure that we understand the goals, right? This is an existing community. It's vibrant, it's exciting, it has challenges like many other ones, but how can we make all these elements better? The ones that are not so great, make them better, and the ones that are good, make it even better. So let's go to the next slide. The initial community input, as I stated on the very first picture that you saw, that was the very first open meeting that the district had with the community where the kids, the staff, and the community members expressed or provided feedback on what they would like to see for this school. So go to the next slide, and you'll see they have very particular things that were meaningful to them. So in gray was the elements that they mentioned as being important, and then in purple, it's how we are responding to those elements. So obviously, cultural identity was very important. Again, this is not a brand new school. This is an existing culture. So through murals, I don't know if you guys have an opportunity to drive downtown, you can start to see the murals come through. There are excellent expression of the cultural experience, right? So we're trying to incorporate into our design some of those elements. School culture, the community spoke highly of how responsive the school itself is and how committed they are to their kids. So we are working very closely with the staff. Ms. Freeman, she couldn't be here today, but she's a huge advocate of not only the school culture, but also the community. The gym, and this has been a little bit contentious because the community really uses it, but we call it a cover pavilion. We're providing a cover pavilion where we serve the same opportunities. A monument, it was important for the community to not only raise this campus and build a new one, but also keep going back to how they overcame, how they created something out of nothing. So creating a cultural element, creating a monument within our site that the community can reconnect to history is important to us, so that is incorporated on the design as well. Gardens, the community gardens, even though they're not being used right now, they are very important, and the community brought it up as something that they felt very passionate about, so we want to make sure we incorporate that. Local partnerships that go way beyond the United Way. I mean, they got so many churches and so many foundations within that area that are willing and happy to support, so, you know, expanding the horizons on those. And then they were very clear that Ms. Freeman was going to be their direct line of communication for their voice as a community, so she's been a part of the, as a principal, a part of the design process. All right, so we also want to make sure we understand Franklin Park today and tomorrow, right? Because the population right now might be different than what it is in the future, and that is given growth projections and whatnot. So as we, you know, look at what it is now, you know, there are certain elements that you can see in the picture that might not be a brand new building, but there are certain spaces within that that are successful. You know, not a gym or the gym, the courtyards, they enjoy having the natural light coming into the space. It's not the greatest because of, you know, sometimes it rains inside the courtyard, but the idea of being able to connect to the outside is very important. If we go to our next one, you can see some of the partnerships, and this is just a very small glimpse of all the community members and partners that are out there. And then obviously you can see the kids, the staff, and everybody heavily involved. Our next slide, you'll see a little bit about the future of that area, you know, with the whole Midtown redevelopment. So we can only foresee that there's going to be a little higher density, more students, so we got to start thinking about those elements. There was also the approval for the $30 million grant on the Southward Village, which also is going to increase the density, you know, just immediately next to our site. Again, Midtown redevelopment. McCollum Hall restoration, another way in which we see how culture is coming through and kind of finding its way to the public, so kind of using that as inspiration. And we also heard that there's a new Black Culture History Museum that is coming online. There's some grants associated with that have been looked for. So it's an area that all we want to say is that illustrate is that this is a vibrant neighborhood and that we need to treat it as such. So our very first workshop, we call it visioning and programming. So what we do is we set up a bunch of images, and they look really clouded, many colors, many things, but all we're trying to do is kind of point out certain elements that people might be attracted to. You know, you can see some colors, you can see some brick, you can see kids playing. There's all kinds of parts and pieces, and so we go and ask everybody participating in this meeting, which includes the district, includes the Ms. Freeman and her staff and us and everybody, and start getting a flavor for what it is that we're looking for. So this is from an aesthetics perspective, but we also do it from a programmatic perspective. You know, how are classrooms meant to function, what are the important relationships, and so on. So we try to create a vision for what the program for this school would be. Once we go through those images and all that, we start playing with little boxes. You're like a bunch of Legos, like we're a bunch of little kids, right? Just put on, I like the red one, give me the orange. So, you know, we fight a little bit, but come up with an approach that is not necessarily about the block, but about the relationships. You know, what this dining room needs to connect to the street, needs to be close to administration, does it need to be close to the courtyard? So we start establishing all these relationships, and in the pictures you can see a few examples. And then we come up with a sketch that means nothing to anybody, the previous one, which is just squiggly lines, but this is very important. This starts establishing or recording the relationship that we have talked about, and then we produce a diagram, which is not meant to say that the school is going to look like this, but that the dining in red right there and dining in kitchen, that is important to be close to that bus loop. And that bus loop is important to remain on that street because it's the one where less pedestrians are accessing. The public plaza in the corner, identifying ways that we can make elements within the site safer for pedestrians. So we recognize that most of the pedestrians are coming from that corner. So creating all these hierarchies and relationships that are important as we evolve into the design. By the way, these are 4-hour sessions. They seem very long, but they're super exciting. Yeah, I recommend you might want to participate in one of them. Workshop number 2. So now that we have all this information, we start looking at what the massing of the site and the building is actually doing. In this case, we like to prepare multiple options based on everything that we already discussed so that we can talk about exploration and never limit anybody. A combination of option 1 with option 4 could come together, but the idea is to explore as much as possible. In this case, all the services had a specific relationship, and the only ones that were kind of floating were the administration and the classroom wings. So in this diagram, the linear elements is your classroom wings, and the little circle is the administration. So that's how we were playing with it. Should it be in the middle? Should it be at the end? Should be classrooms open and then administration in between, or any configuration in between? After we look at that, we go into the details, and you probably can't really read a lot of details in there, but we go through the exercise of seeing what each of these options are doing and what is meaningful to whom, and then have a tally of who likes what option better and for what merits. So after we tally that, we go to our workshop number 3, in which we're going to provide a more refined review of the options in more detail. So in this case, we chose option 1 and option 5. Option 1 had merits because it had intimate courtyard spaces, which were very reminiscent of the existing school right now. It had a strong connection between interior circulation and outdoors, so we were able to, with this option, bring a lot of the lighting into the corridors and into the classroom. And then the building opens to the United Way, because that is the community component. We want to make sure that the building embraces the United Way, because that kids transit that pretty regularly in this school. Then option 5 had its own merit, connection between admin and pedestrian corridor. The building opens to the United Way, so that's shared the same as the other one. Administration is visible down the corridors, so we can, it gives you a little better supervision, and then it has modular pods. So in the next floor plan, you can see how the option 1 works out. We had a site plan, and then floor plans level 1 and level 2, and then a little diagram, 3D diagram of what the campus is doing, just to kind of illustrate all the elements that we just discussed on the description. And then we did the same thing for the next option. So here's the spot where we would say, now we have done all this exploration, we need to get, we can home in into what it is that we want to do. And so we took a tally, who likes what and where, and here's the final solution that we came up for this, option 1, which is option 1, but tilting a little bit that leg to open up more towards the United Way and the community center. And I said all this only to tell you how much collaboration goes into place to create that. This is not something that just, somebody drafted one night when didn't have any sleep the day before. I did that, but not for this project, for something else. But the point being is that it takes a lot of collaboration, and we take a lot of pride in what we do, and we love the fact that the district was able to give us a lot of attention. These meetings were lengthy, but exciting. So the final design, here's the site plan. So north is planned left. So you can see the corner on the bottom right would be the corner of Edison and 4th Street, which we identify as our main pedestrian corridor, where most pedestrians were recorded transiting towards the school. As you can see there, we're trying to identify, I don't know if you've been there, but the sidewalk is very narrow at that particular corner, and there's a ditch. So we have kids transiting 5-foot sidewalk with cars on one side and a ditch on the other side. So what we're doing here is creating a plaza that is a little bigger, that encompasses and covers a portion of that, so that they can easily navigate their way in. And as they transit towards the school, we want to create little spots of momentum spots for a monument, where kids can reflect on what the school was, and this could be, we're still developing what that is, but it could be a wall with bricks with names of, staff from way back in the school, or even community members that have been significant and important to the community, to highlight, keep them connected with their culture, because ultimately this is all about ownership, and the more we engage the community and the more they feel a part of it, the better it be for the project. So you would arrive into the administration wing, which is where the walkway leads you to, and from there, on the bottom, for the central place on the bottom, that will be all your pre-K and K classrooms with a pre-K and a K playground area contained within that and secure. And then on the upper floor and the farther wing would be your first and second, and then the second floor would be third, fourth, and fifth. We have the United Way sharing the building 16 that we could not get rid of because the state did not allow that, but we had creative ways to connect that with the media center, so we made that into the media center. The principal felt that that was the venue that was most conducive to be connected with the existing community center. So that is that, and then you have the arts and the dining room on the upper part close to the bus loop. Everybody has a separate entrance, buses are separated, parents are separated, and the community center is separated. Let's see now the actual schematic package. Let's go to the first rendering, and you're gonna see a lot of color. And this was also a topic of discussion. We obviously, in the process, might end up toning it down or messing a little bit with it, but this is schematic, so this is not the final thing. But the idea is these are elements that culturally came through as we were going through our process. I don't know if you can tell, but some of those walls has murals in them, and those are actually images from McCollum Hall that we transposed onto the rendering. So the exploration to create local art opportunities within the school was important as well. Here's a more exciting site plan that allows you to see a little bit more in color. The idea of incorporating color in the basketball courts, into the play areas, just kind of creating excitement not only for the students, but we believe that there are three parts to the learning experience. There's the student learning experience, which is obviously very important. There's also the professional learning experience. We want environments where professionals have an opportunity to increase their knowledge and increase their practice by having flexibility and being excited about being there. And the last one is us, the community, understanding and learning how can we always better support our students and our teachers. The next images are of the floor plan. They're a little bit enlarged, and the color coding represent different components, whether it's administration, dining, classrooms, and so on. So I won't go into all these details because we'll probably spend all day here, but this is all good information. Now you can see the elevations on the next slide. Again, kind of where we are trying to get some murals, where we are trying to get some accent colors, and talk about materials and what elements. Keep in mind that this school is a shelter or is required to be a shelter, I should say. And for that, we have dedicated a particular portion of it to be served as such. So we are using the same type of construction that you would typically see done. We're just trying to create a little bit more excitement within the school itself. Let's see, there's another set of renderings. The top left is looking from the parents' drop-off into the main entrance. The top right would be the kind of covered pavilion. The top left is looking into the pre-K courtyard or play area. So you can see that we have massings that are 2-story on the left and 1-story at the bottom. We wanted to create a little bit of not too much of a massing, but create a little bit of break in between that to blend in better with the neighborhood. And then on the bottom right, you see the intermediate play area with the basketball courts and the 1-story portion of the building. The rest of the package is mostly, wall sections, us talking about what different elements and heights make up the spaces and what materials make up the building systems. Obviously, they're not as exciting as the rendering. But now we get to the if we can get to the temp side. Mine here is a lot nicer. But what I would say about the temp side is that the temp side had exactly the same approach as we did with the school in terms of involving the community. We have very early on conversations about what side was going to be selected for this area. This side across the street from James Stevens was recommended. And the first thing that the district did was to set up a meeting with us, with the principal from James Stevens, and the soccer club that uses that field on the weekend. There's a women's and men's soccer league. And to make sure that we make any effort to keep some of that venue in place so that they can continue to use it, because it's been positive to the community. So we spend a lot of time in identifying how many fields they have, how they use them, how can we be most efficient with setting up the temp school without compromising safety or anything like that, so that they have a venue that they can continue to use for that particular recreational activity. And we came up with this layout. It provides approximately 5 fields that they can use. They currently have, if I'm not mistaken, 7? 7. So it's a little less than what they have, but it gives them, it gives them space to continue their practice. But the greatest thing is that once we remove this temp site, the parking can remain. So that is an asset to the community. Now the community is going to have lights. They're going to have more parking for them to use when the soccer leagues comes into play. So we're not just doing something temporarily. We're making a long-term benefit to the community. So again, win-win for both the school district, the community, and the end user. And with that, we would go to the last slide, which would be, any comments and questions. And obviously, I got to leave on a rendering with a lot of color, get everybody excited.
Well, I can see why you wanted to stand, because this is exciting, and this is truly a community school, and I think it's a sign of more to come in the future, so thank you for that. And I think Ms. Jordan had her hand up first, and Ms. Gittens and Ms. Vaughn.
I just say I am really, really, really excited about this, because I know it has been like for years, I feel like it. So I'm just, and just to see this and know that we have had community input and the community has definitely been engaged. And what also is taking place across the street, as you mentioned, with Southward Village, the grocery store, just everything that's going to be taking place in that area is going to be phenomenal for our kids there. And then having the United Way and the Community Partnership School, having that entrance to come in separately to make sure that everybody's still taken care of as well is huge. On the site that on Marsh Avenue where the portables are going to be, right now there's a gate there for them to go in, and they get the key and they go in and they unlock it. So how do you separate the schools from where, because I assume that those are the 5 fields that are marked there, they're kind of like pinkish?
So, yeah, so in terms of access to the site, what we did is we are proposing to block the access from Marsh Avenue, because they're directly, they're directly across from the where the parents are coming in for James Stevens. So now they're coming south from Alpha Drive, which is, if you see the red line there, Alpha Drive comes in and they go around. So that keeps those parents away from the other parents going into James Stevens. And then the bus loop is on the north side. They would have to access from Marsh Avenue, but then they have a lot of stacking lane to come onto the site. So we came up with a scheme that allowed to have separation between what's happening at James Stevens, which will remain, and most likely the times are going to be pretty close to one another. So we want to keep it separated as much as possible.
So I'm sorry, so is the bus loop, is that on Ballard or that's Marsh?
The bus loop is on.
Is that Ballard Road?
What
or
is
Marsh?
New York Street?
Oh, that's New York.
And then Marsh is going up, up and down. So we're closing the access for Marsh into the site.
I got you. So I'm looking at it flipped then. Okay, thank you. But then again, when I go over there and I see that everybody's out there playing and they're able to, I know they have big trash cans for them to put the trash in and everything. It's a huge communities get together there. But how do you separate them from going within the school area? Because I don't see a fence separating.
Yeah, it's hard to see in
or
this
is it
sketch, and we had an updated sketch for it, but yeah, essentially the entire perimeter of those little blue boxes are the portables. That entire perimeter has a fence.
Okay.
And then, so that isolates the rest of it. The overall campus has a fence, but then the portable area itself has another fence.
Perfect.
So it gives separate access.
I got you now. Thank you so much.
No problem.
For real, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Okay, thank you. This is exciting. I can't wait until we see a lot more of these. On slide 25, in the bottom left-hand corner, the picture that shows, it has United Way and Media. Okay, so is that, it's at the top, almost right of the construction there?
So-
That's the first floor?
So building 16 is an existing building, so it's a one-story building. So what we're doing there is that half of that building is being dedicated, Natalie, if you can zoom in to the next floor plan.
If you just make it bigger, that one on the bottom left is what I'm talking about,
Colored one.
with the little pictures,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you
You
zoom
make
in?
plus and bring it up, because that's what I did.
Yeah, so that is an existing one-story building. So on one side would be the United Way or Community Center, and then on the other side, it would be the Media Center.
Okay, so, and I'm not really clear on which activities and what the United Way will be using theirs for, but the entrance and exit of people coming during the day while school is going on to participate in activities with United Way is what I was wondering.
Yeah, so the United Way side has a dedicated entrance that is independent parking, independent everything. What the United Way Express is that this is a community center, but it's children or student center, meaning that most of the help that they're providing is to the students. So for example, a student comes in and doesn't have the proper attire, they give them the right clothing, they don't have the supplies, they take them there. So that is kind of their regular everyday in and out. Now, families come also to be assessed and work with the student. They can enter from the main entrance of the center itself without having to touch or interact with any students or whatsoever, but they also have the opportunity, if they have to be linked to their student, they can come in through the main gate at the school, request that they have a meeting with their teacher or whomever, and their student, and access it. So there are completely separate access.
So will that United Way, that building, will it be fenced off from the other parts of the building?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can access the other.
Correct.
But it's separate.
And part of positioning everything the way it is, including the cover play, is that in the ways it would be fenced out, the community center could have access when applicable to the principal, or okay with the principal, could have access to the PE area without having to enter the rest of the campus.
Okay, and on slide 27, if I'm looking at, and I think this is the bottom left as well, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That same section where it says media, multipurpose, and multipurpose workshop, is that the whole area that is the United Way area?
Yeah, so the purple and yellow would be kind of the United Way side, and then on the right of that, the green and gray, that is the Media Center side.
Okay, so when we say media center, I think library, I mean, so that's
that
what
is
that
correct.
is. So on one side then of that wall is students going to the media center, but the other side is possibly public or parents or someone
Correct.
coming in to go to United Way events.
That is correct.
And those two, there's not, where that yellow is at the bottom, that's not leading into the media center, is it?
That is all is lock access.
That's
So
what I mean.
So yeah,
all of that's
everything, and that Ms. Freeman has been, she calls them, her kids. So she's like, my kids are gonna be protected and separated, and 100%, yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, and thank you so much, and I love the colors.
Great.
I will
I'm
make
a
one
yellow kind of girl, right?
One for colors, yeah.
One comment about the reason that we put the media center next to the United Way, and you can see the doors, is it provides opportunities, if necessary, through the day for a student to go into the media, and to go into the United Way side. So if a parent was doing something and they wanted to be able to bring the student in, there's that connection. It allows for the connection, but it doesn't, it allows for a connection from the student side into the United Way side without providing connection from the United Way side into the student side.
Okay, because you mentioned like clothing and stuff like that.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah,
if
so
they
they're,
need something, they could get it from there.
yep,
Okay, thank you very much. This is beautiful.
thank you.
And it is awesome. Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous design with the colors and all, but permit me to be practical for a moment, looking with an eye toward upkeep. There's a lot of, is this just the artist rendering, or will there actually be that much green space in the courtyard areas?
Oh, green as in grass or?
Grass and,
Yeah, well, so there are some areas for hardscape. There's one thing, in Florida, and you've seen it, you guys have courtyards where there used to be planters and,
right,
you know,
right.
they went in and covered them up, and now you can barely see any students there. If there's no shade in a courtyard, it's very hard for a student to tolerate, and it just becomes a no man's land. So what we're trying to implement is as many green areas as possible, as much ease of maintenance as possible. But there's a very fine line in between zero maintenance and having a place that requires a little maintenance, but that is habitable, that people would actually want to sit there or have canopy. There are other ways to mitigate it, such as canopy or other elements to provide shade.
Okay, so are we looking to do, looking to ecology and Florida friendly and all of that? Because I taught at Estero High School for 8 years, and I know that they have a big huge central courtyard, which is lovely, but my understanding is that it was really expensive for upkeep, especially as time went on. So, again, here we are as school board members looking at, other things down the road. So that would be one thing that I would be concerned about, how that interior landscape could be
Correct.
aesthetically beautiful and yet not be a super high maintenance
That is correct.
kind of thing that plants are dying because there's not enough water going to them and that.
That's right.
And that kind of thing. The other thing is with the colors. Again, did you say to be decided, or these?
So right now, when I say to be decided, is that schematics is a point in which we are in the overall process. It's kind of the very early on, the concept, how we envision this, and as we move forward, we start refining what those elements are. So for example, when it comes to the art, the murals,
Right.
we have multiple locations, but obviously we can't have a mural on every single location. So we'll work with the end user and the district to identify, well, let's select some specific or strategic areas that we can do that. And then number two, with colors, we can also use element, not just being the mural itself, but we can use metal panels that are pre-coated, that don't have to be painted, that will last there for 40 years, and we can create some interesting patterns
You're
within that.
you're reading my mind on this because.
That's why I needed to stand up, so we can be.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. Okay, yes. Because, we just had maintenance talking about painting projects and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure, is it every 5 to 6 years? I know there's a rotation. I don't remember.
Yeah, about 5 years for paint, yeah.
Yeah, what it is. I was thinking 5 to 6 years. And all I'm thinking is, hey, 5 or 6 years down the road, whoa, that's going to be some kind of job. But that's a good thing. And one more thing, what kinds of interior things do you envision, interior or exterior, that are ecologically sound and that, our older schools lighting and, I can't even tell you, but what things are being built into a brand-new school that down the road is going to save us a lot of money in terms of just the physical plant and
So-
maintenance, talking about the chiller and what.
That is
new
correct. And
things,
those are, so there's while the school district does not follow any sustainability accreditation per se, they do follow the checklist model, which means, and you guys are not the only one. It's very costly sometimes to pursue certain certifications. So in this case, we take the best practices, and you guys are taking the best practices on use an efficient HVAC system. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Use good insulation, use thermal rated windows, use good system that will give you longevity. Whether you pursue or not a certification, that is different. You still getting the benefit of doing so. So in this case, it's all tilt-up construction, which is very cost-effective, and not only that, gives you really good massing for your envelope, meaning that you use your HVAC less hard than you would if you had a different system. You have a central energy plant that is going to provide the most effective HVAC requirements or will supply the requirements for HVAC in the most efficient manner. So all those elements are already, outlined to be in there. You got LED, which is a no-brainer, but LED is now doing something else. Now you can change the tone of your LED, which is there's research that says that when you need a student to be a little more active, you can go more towards the blue light, or not the blue, but more of the higher temperature light, and where you need them to, close to lunch or wanna go to the lower end, you can go to the
So
lower.
you're talking about like in the classroom?
Yeah, within the classroom, controlling LED. But that is not something, we are going to the next step, which is developing all of those systems and working with your team, maintenance, construction, planning, and making sure that we're giving you what makes sense and not just something that is a little above and beyond. But ultimately, everything we do, and yes, we gotta keep an eye on maintenance and everything else, but we cannot put a price on the students' learning experience. Ultimately, we gotta do what is responsible to react to it, because we can build boxes all day long, and that's, that would be more cost effective, but that is not the task at hand. We wanna be effective with the dollars, but effective also for the learning experience.
Right, and I totally agree, and this is an exciting plan, and yet, and I'm happy with the answers, like the metal, what did you say, metal sheets?
Yeah, metal panels,
and that sort of thing, because really, in practicality, if we're having to repaint schools every 5 or 6 years, this would be a huge painting project, and with our brand-new schools, I know, we look to be cost-effective, but sometimes it's better on the building side and the planning side that we put in, some of the more modern things, because it's
one of the things
it's been my experience looking at some of the schools in this district, and the one that comes to mind first was Cypress Lake Middle School. It was one of the first ones I saw, and I don't know what Lee County was doing then, where those of you who've been here a long time, were they going through let's just throw up the cheapest thing we can do? And I mean, there's a fine line between making it a Taj Mahal and making it an ugly box that you want something pretty, you want something engaging for the kids, and yet you want something that you can keep up.
That's right.
And is high quality. And it sounds like you all have been thinking about
Yes, ma'am.
about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Ms. Gittens?
Piggybacking on the thing about the colors, because I was concerned about that too. Was it, like mosaic with rocks or something that would last a long time?
Yeah, so what we were doing for so the images that you see where you see multiple colors kind of doing this, those are actual pictures from the mural that we superimpose in there. So in our case, if we're doing metal panels, we can have metal panels stagger and do different shapes and different colors. So it's not necessarily somebody, painting each little corner, but this is more of like a graphic representation, but not an exact interpretation of what it would ultimately look like.
And the upkeep, because, with the fading and all of that of the paint, I agree with what, Ms.
Yeah.
Vaughn was saying. But on metal, and then the overlay, is there a system that makes that last longer type?
Yeah, so the metal coatings are rated for, it's kind of like a metal roof. It's rated for a much longer, the finish on that is much longer than your typical paint, yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mrs. Patrica?
No, I sent it via email. I sent my question via email.
Oh, okay. All right, any other?
I do have another
Yes.
question then, if no
Ms.
one else does.
Jordan.
Okay, first, again, I have to keep saying thank you, and I really am excited that this school will be a shelter, because there is no shelters in that area, and there's a lot of older wooden homes. So for them to be able to walk there in case of emergency, and for us to be able to provide that is just, that's a beautiful thing. Also, the bricks. I know that they were talking about this for some time, about the bricks of the schools, and doing something with that to save that. Is that something that you're thinking about
Yeah,
as well?
that is what we're thinking about for the monument itself, finding ways to kind of reconstruct that in a different way and kind of engrave names, create opportunities for little momentums within that.
Okay, so with the bricks, the
Yes,
old bricks
ma'am.
from the school, perfect. And then,
And there's also brick in the elevations as well, because that was something that was important to the community as well.
it was, so that's why I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that.
Yeah, it's in the rendering.
Hear that. Okay, and then, and I just really want to thank Kathy Ebal, because Kathy, I know you've been in this fight, the Castaldi report, Building 16, waiting for that to come back, calling the state and doing all that. And I know that you are resigning, and I just want to say thank you, and that I wish you the best of luck.
I'm not gone yet.
I know you're not going yet, but this is the time that I can see you and say that.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
I'll be real quick. I just want to say how beautiful this is, and I'm very excited, and I can't wait for the groundbreaking day. So,
Well,
thank you.
thank you very much. That was my mission, get you guys excited. That's it.
You did that.
Can you paint my house this way? Just kidding.
And I want to just remind everyone that, and it should be on your calendars, on May 11th in the evening from 6 o'clock? 6 to 6:30?
6 o'clock.
6 to 7, there will be a community meeting where we will present a very similar presentation as this one to the community at Franklin Park in the cafeteria like we did last time, and we will be asking for their input and ideas on how well we did in achieving what they asked from us last year. So if you're able to attend 6 o'clock on the evening of May 11th, which is a Wednesday night.
So on May 11th, the Continuous Systemic Improvement Advisory Committee will be having their meeting at the Franklin Park Community School meeting. So we'll be participating in that.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that we clarify because of our sunshine requirements. I have a question through the chair from Ms. Patrica. When you said that you were sending an email, I'm assuming you were sending an email to the superintendent just asking a follow-up question, not to the board for discussion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
wonderful presentation, and I'm looking forward to the 11th of May.
You can
Thank
sit
you.
down now. He didn't even hear me.
Thank you, Ms. Eba. Okay, so. Does anyone need a break, or shall we just go ahead and?
What time is it?
It is
24.
3:24.
Yeah, we probably need to finish before 4.
Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Dupree Bruno, please address the issue of public comment.
Thank you very much. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda. If you completed a public comment card, please make sure that we have it in the basket that's provided or in the hallway. Please be advised that the board will not respond during public comment to remarks made by speakers. Speakers who fail to follow proper decorum in the chambers will be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the microphone per Board Policy 1.11 and may be removed from the chambers. Per Board Policy 1.11, the time per speaker is 3 minutes, and you will find a countdown on the big screen in the front of the room. Once your time has elapsed, the microphone will automatically shut off. Please state your name when you approach the microphone. I will call you by name, and please follow the staff's direction. Madam Chair, there are 4 speakers that wish to address the board at this briefing.
Is there anyone else in the audience who did not complete a card and wishes to speak? Seeing none, please call the first name.
Will the following individuals please line up? Jamie Miller, Denise Nystrom, Sharon McGill, Christy DiVigelli.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Last year, at this time, the board was aware that the Parents' Bill of Rights would be signed into law on July 1st. We, the people, requested that the law be placed into the Code of Conduct front and center so the parents would not miss it. We also requested that an opt-in letter, as opposed to an opt-out, be provided to parents. Not only did neither of those things occur, the Parents' Bill of Rights board policy did not take effect until October. In late June or early July of last year, prior to the policy being passed, the board did discuss if there would be enough time to make changes to the Code of Conduct and be able to have it ready to be given to parents by the time school opened, and the board decided that there was not enough time to make any changes. Today is April 24th, so there is plenty of time to add 1557 to the Code of Conduct. In the current Code of Conduct, on page 15 is the section that reads Notification of Parents' Rights, but nowhere up front and center are words that reflect SB 582, which gives the parents the rights to be in charge of their children when it comes to teaching morality, religion, emotional wellness, and health. Nor is there anything about 1557 or about the fairness in sports law. Nor is there anything in writing that states that parents do not have to vaccinate or mask their children in order to attend school. And according to the parents that reach out, there are buildings where children are still being handed masks and have not been told that they don't have to wear them. You have the time now to do your due diligence. My question is, are you going to address these issues now? Having a link to the portal where they have to drill down to find this important information is not transparent enough. Also, the Code of Conduct states that parents are encouraged to read the Code of Conduct, encouraged to read a document that is used to quantify student infractions, and that principals have the sole right to determine the level of infraction. Mrs. Fisher asked at the last briefing meeting why so many of our students were being arrested for infractions where the crime does not meet the infractions. This is a huge issue that needs to be examined thoroughly. With all the hiring of all the new positions that occurs, why are we not utilizing a district attorney that works with each principal before consequences with significance is imposed or before police intervene? Some children in the district end up in a lot of trouble over minor accidents, while others have major infractions and end up with a much less significant consequences. We have to be very cautious when we're imposing consequences that traumatize children, prohibiting them from achieving a successful educational career. Please be proactive in addressing these issues now while you have the time. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. My name's Jamie Miller. First off, the code of conduct is very long. It's taken me almost 3 days just to get through one book, and you've separated it into two. But I do have some concerns where I feel like the sexual harassment or sexual offenses are contradicting levels throughout the entire code of conduct. So on page 48 under school violence, it says that sexual harassment must be reported to law enforcement, but it's not cited that way under the definition. Sexual offenses is cited as must be reported to law enforcement, but it's also considered a level 3 plan for the infractions. There's no escalation if there's a repeat of said infraction. But on page 78, it does say that sexual harassment is suggested to report to law enforcement and sexual offenses is expected. Last year, the school district reported 125 sexual harassment or sexual offense infractions. Only 5 were reported to the Lee County Sheriff's Office. So I have questions about why the district is not following their own protocols. Also, on page 61, where it says the range of corrective strategies, I am going to have 2 children in this district in the fall, and I can guarantee you that if any of them are a victim of sexual harassment, a sexual offense, or anything related to this sort of behavior, a letter of apology will be taken to the sheriff's office, and I will create my own report. And if that's a toddler approach to that kind of behavior. So I expected more in high school levels. So I hope that this feedback can be addressed with whomever is writing the code of conduct for the fall. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sharon McGill, and I'd just like to preface that if some of my comments come out as questions, they're not intended to be answered immediately by anybody on the board, just to clarify that. On page 18 of the Code of Conduct, there's a section called Express Themselves by Speaking, Writing, Wearing, or Displaying Symbols of Ethnic, Cultural, or Political Values. But then at the bottom, it also says these rights are not absolute and will be limited when necessary to prevent the disruption of the orderly operation of the school and/or to prevent harm or damage to other persons and property. So that's pretty subjective. And who's going to make that decision? I mean, whose shoulders does that responsibility fall on? And ultimate responsibility for that. And just as a lay person in the community, I didn't get to go through the full 100 pages because the website went down. But I got to one page where there was a director of positive prevention. And I said to myself, okay, positive prevention. You're preventing positive behaviors, and I know what it's supposed to be, that you're trying to take positive steps to prevent disruptive behavior. But that title from and maybe it's school jargon, but from just a community member, I read that and I went, that really doesn't explain what that position is supposed to be. One other thing about construction, I know it was said today that a lot of materials were being purchased and stored somewhere on a property. I would think that it goes without saying that there will be 24/7 surveillance of some kind, either visually or physically, for those pieces of material that are outrageously expensive that we're paying for. And we know things can disappear from construction sites. that all of those materials are being protected since our tax dollars are paying for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Christine DiVigili. I'm going to be real quick today. I would like to echo Ms. Denise by requesting that you please include a page in the Code of Conduct to reflect current and upcoming legislation pertaining to parental rights. And then I'd also like some clarification, or not clarification, I would like to request that the agenda be updated to accurately list the correct presenters in the job descriptions. When job descriptions were talked about, it said Robert Dodig was going to present that, but then there were two gentlemen there that are not on the agenda. So can that be updated to represent the right information? That's it for today, or for now.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, and I will make a note to our Code of Conduct team to consider your comments for today. Thank you. At this time, we will move on to board members' comments and reports. And today, we will begin with Ms. Vaughn.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, a couple of quick things. The Finance Committee will be presenting some suggestions and questions that they have, and I said that I would bring them back to the board. Some they're still working on, but I will just list them. There was discussion about the proximity presentation by Davis Demographics, and some of the members felt that the red dot reports were incorrect and wanted further clarification on some of those. And I don't have the specifics as to what, and I'm not sure, Superintendent, how we would work that. Is there any representative that could be at a Finance Committee to answer those questions, explain, or whatever? I know Davis Demographics is not here. Is there someone else in the data realm that?
I think it'll probably depend on the specifics of the question, because obviously we work pretty closely with Davis Demographics, so everything they produce, we can have some level of ability to explain everything that they've done, just because a lot of it's collaborative. They work very closely with us. At the same time, it just really probably depends. Can I get or is it possible to get specific questions, or have a specific
And
person reach
I
out
will
to?
try to get more
Okay.
specific. Also, I just thought about it, that we do have a simulcast thing. We have some that are on Zoom. And so that could potentially, if we could coordinate with Davis Demographics to be a guest by Zoom, is that a possibility?
Yes, their primary point contact for us is based out of California, so it's
Right.
about a 3-hour time difference. But I'm sure something could be scheduled. It's just if possible, we'd like to do it without having to pay them additional consultation for it. But it just depends.
Okay, I will look into that and see if that would be acceptable to them as well.
Thank you.
Their second thing was about looking at budgets to see where we could possibly make cuts or identify inefficiencies. And I know that that's part of what the audit team and the RSM are engaged in specific areas. And again, I don't know if they mean, overall certain areas. I did mention that we have the audit committee and that we do have RSM back, so that will be addressed as well. The other thing, they would like to look at operations, to the way they stated it, to see how things are done. The question was, I guess, the specific org chart, who does what, how, when, and where. In other words, just kind of saying, we decide we're going to build a school, and just kind of timelining and stepping it out and saying this is what, and I don't know if we have that already. I kind of vaguely remember something in one of the reports from construction or whatever, so if that is something that we have. But anyway, that was one of their questions. And there were a couple of other things. Okay, they did do a motion on to advise the district to send out an RFP to see, and I'm quoting here, to see if there's a cheaper health insurance for employees and families or another creative solution. So that was, and our guest at the last meeting was Mr. Dodick, and of course there were many insurance questions and that type of thing. So after hearing his presentation and asking questions, the outcome was, is there any possibility of doing an RFP to look for a cheaper insurance thing? And as I have consistently said, that's like moving the battleship. But I brought it forth. Is there any response that you can, through the chair, of course?
Madam Vice Chair, I can say that basically for anything, I think structurally it's always wonderful for any of these committees to have presentations by staff who are most knowledgeable in this particular area. Obviously, Mr. Dodick being over HR, Bonnie, Ms. McFarland is really over the specific insurance side. And I think from a cost of insurance standpoint, I think, you know, it's more complicated than probably just cheaper insurance. I think for us, it's a really, obviously they probably dug into it quite a bit on that meeting, but I think it would be helpful probably if I had staff, you know, just what were the different questions raised, what were the things that they were able to kind of explain, kind of elevate the conversation, and then what were some specific asks that staff heard from a position of real expert knowledge to say, yes, this is actually a really great value add that they could then give to me, and then I'd be happy to bring back to the board. Just so that I'm not wasting your time with speculating about it. I think that's, yeah. We spend a lot of time internally looking at the insurance situation here.
I know, and trying to figure it out, and I, you know, like I said, I know that we are trying our best consistently each year to look for the best process, and they were just feeling like, well, we need to just send out an RFP, and I wasn't aware of the possibilities or whatever. So again, through the chair, if there can be some follow-up generic answers, and then if we get specific questions, we can go with that. Okay, I will be bringing the good of the order this evening about the National Day of Prayer, and I sent it out to all of you. It should be a simple good of the order. And I explained yesterday that it's something that we participate in, so why shouldn't the schools? The question I have then, though, is there, how will it be, are we going to allow the schools individually to decide if it's, you know, a moment of silence? Do we say there will be, you know, a certain amount of time, student-led? Do we do anything further than saying this? And
Mr. P. Bruno.
Thank you. Depending on how the board votes tonight, legal will draft guidance to the principals so that we can make sure that it's done properly and it's within the statutory guidelines. We already have a statutory requirement to have 1 minute of silence, so we'll incorporate that, as well as Florida Statute 1002.206, which discusses religious expression led by students. So we will provide guidance once the board has made its decision.
Okay. All right, thank you. I would like to ask, I know we get updates on schools and buildings and all of that. Is there any where, and I'm thinking about VPAA and all of the moving parts to that project, is there somewhere that we can find between meetings, okay, here's where we're at? Because what happens is between one meeting and an update, all this stuff happens, and when we get it, this is what happened. And I know that at this point, after fixing the old lambs or the annex or whatever they're going to call it, there was the need to discuss adjusting and fixing classrooms in the main building in the front that had previously been for 6th through 8th grade, and how will they adapt those rooms to K through 5 or pre-K through 5, and just where are we on that part of the process. And you can, get back to us. I just hate that, things are going on and we hear that this was done instead of having some type of a way. And is that through, what was the system we what is it? The system they told us about.
Bonfire.
Bonfire. I knew there was a fire in there somewhere. Bonfire. Are there updates on that? Or is that just when we're getting the permit for, and doing the RFPs and all that?
I think this raises a really good question, actually. I think part of when you're doing so many projects, and the projects are sometimes multiple years in the making, and they exist from legal pieces to the procurement side to the design work, as you had more updates today, and we have so many meetings already, 6 a month, and we fill those up with presentations. What do you do for the time in between meetings if you want more of that operational understanding of what's going on between all those pieces? I think there are project teams that are doing that work, but how can not just board members, but anyone who wants to kind of stay apprised of what's going on, like the public or concerned folks who teachers, parents, students who want to follow the progress of those pieces. So I think it's a valid question to ask. One of the things that we've really tried to do as an organization is shift our thinking more towards a project management, portfolio management type of design, where these projects kind of exist. I think you're seeing some of it in the board presentations, where they're showing kind of which phase these various projects are in. And I think for some of them, it would be probably cost prohibitive to do fully detailed Gantt charts that are constantly being updated. The project managers only have so much bandwidth to manage that, but for really significantly large ones like a Veterans Park or something like that, or Riverdale, ones that have a lot more interest potentially, we could look at something like that, something more public facing, like on the operations website, something where they could look and see updates with photos and recent meetings and what's next. Something that's a little bit more real time. I'm happy to have that conversation with the operations staff, see if there's any thoughts.
And it could be even something as simple as, a digital timeline that you can go on there and see, this is where we started. You know how they do the camera, the live camera kind of angles, and this is where we were, and this is where we are now. Just kind of even following it that way. Just something simple that wouldn't take a lot of man-woman hours to do. One thing I wanted to bring up too is about the website. I've brought this up many times before. We hear the public bring it up, and I hear all the time you tell someone to go to the website, and it is, if you count, most marketing firms will count the number of clicks to get to the information you need. And if you have to do over 3 clicks to get to something, that is something that needs to be looked at. Maybe looking at some of the other districts. I mean, you go on and they're just very super user-friendly. There's a picture here and you click on it, it takes you to where you want to go. I tell people, well, if you want to see the agenda, you go on board docs. Well, you have to go there, you got to go to leadership, you got to go to board, you got to go to board docs, then you got to find the meeting. I mean, you're clickety, 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 clicking.
One click to meetings.
Yes.
No, there is one click.
There's one? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, well, I'm missing
Do it that way, but, sorry.
No,
you
that's
can.
okay. All right, well, you can tell me, and maybe we can, put it out there. It's just, how do we get across, because that's part of that transparency, that how quickly and easily can you access something? So I don't know where we are in that process. Is it something on the radar for making it a little more user-friendly? Madam Chair, through the superintendent, is that anywhere on the radar?
I will get with communications. They, I think it's always fair to say, how can we make our website experience the most engaging? And I think it's fair to say the fewer clicks, the better, the more there's a logic to it that anyone who's looking at it can easily navigate quickly. That's certainly the desired outcome. It's probably a work in progress. So I'll be happy to follow up with communication staff and get an answer back on kind of what that body of work. I know they're going to be presenting to me fairly soon their strategic plan concept, I think, and also with Dr. Bernier. So just to kind of show, they've been working on it I gave that, I think, directed back in August. Yeah. So it's been a huge body of work trying to figure out how they can better engage all stakeholder groups. And I know they're looking forward to sharing that. So.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, we've talked about the scheduling, the 4 periods going to the 7 periods, and there's still a lot of angst in the community and the schools about that. And I'm not sure if we addressed the idea of having it more site-based decision, because if you have a school that is very tech and, you got to get all the gear on to get into class, and that's different from another academic one. So I just would like to put it out there that the possibility of having it site-based decided, because each school's different.
Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that too. So when I met with all the high school principals, one of the things that I reminded them is, at the time we were still in bargaining, but one of the options that the union was fully supportive is the 80% talc vote for some level of site-based piece. I think the only non-negotiable we had strictly was the funding and the staffing level being consistent from school to school. For that additional above and beyond consideration or flexibility, they are very much empowered to bring ideas forward to their supervisors to work through that process, because, as I have mentioned many times, I was not a big proponent of the 7-period day. I understood that there was the rationale, the staffing, savings, and whatnot. It's really more staffing rather than monetary savings, as we just are trying to do it to minimize the negative impact that the current 4x4 with teachers teaching 6 of 8 has from a staffing standpoint on all of the schools, especially the middle schools as well as all the high schools, that contributes to our overall staffing deficits. That's why many districts are not doing that type of model, because from a staffing standpoint, they simply don't have the capacity to do it. But that said, it was from very early on, the conversations with principals directly was that flexibility does exist and has always existed, but it continues to exist. There is that formal process, but even if they were to fall short, we still would work with individual schools if they had that piece. I think the correct process for us is to notice their supervisors. I think originally they did, Dr. Spiro and team had some time parameters that they put in to say, let us know so we can have time to work with you directly. But I'm happy to follow up with them and find out if any schools have reached out for that additional flexibility, or in some cases piloting additional supplemental workarounds and things of that nature.
So it is, the final statement then, it is on the table that an individual school may give to the district an alternative plan that is more germane to their school. That is
absolutely
on the table.
The non-negotiable was they can't run a more expensive,
not more
like
robust.
Essentially for them, they can't get a disproportionately piece. They have to be able to pay for that, right?
But what some are saying is that the constant is the bell time beginning and end is the same for everybody. Transportation is going to get kids here at the same time as everybody else. What you do with that time that you have those students in the building, as long as you're not asking for additional funding, is up to you.
That, I would say that that's not a completely accurate retelling. I would say that that's a fair comment to make, that there is that flexibility in terms of proposing a plan. I think that has to be vetted and analyzed. The other piece of that, though, is it's not limited to just that. If there were additional time, extended time, if they wanted a longer day to be able to run and do these additional things, those things are certainly elements that they could bring forward as well. There's the creativity that we have to show as a system right now is pretty essential. I think what any of the high school principals were concerned about when I spoke to them collectively as a group was time. You know, that some of them would have absolutely done some more innovative pieces, but considering what they've been through the last 2 years, do they really have the time to pull that off? Do they really want to go through that with their faculties? But I think no two schools are exactly the same. So that was definitely a pretty clear message to them. And I even offered to personally go and work with any of their faculties myself to help if they had some innovative solutions that can best serve their children. Just because we really want to support that type of innovation if it can be done in a way that doesn't hurt the other schools from a staffing standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. And I wrote a list so I wouldn't forget. Well, it's been a busy 2 weeks. I have attended the Cape Coral Chamber. There was one of the representatives were there, and we were having conversations regarding appropriations, workforce, which of course we know that there's always a need there, especially having the only college in the Cape, which is our Cape Coral Technical College, and asking to make sure that we have that support there so that the people and the residents over there have the ability to attend and have a workforce base. Also, there was a groundbreaking at Montecero that most of us were there, which was fabulous. Again, that's out in the East Zone. I attended the Edison Awards. It was an experimenting learning day, which our students participated in. The students were given buses to come and participate. They had NFL players there who did it was a professional athletes Shark Tank. Actually, Dr. Savage was there. He spoke. He did the opening ceremony there. It was really great to see all the kids there. They were so excited about the opportunity and what that future may look like for them, you know, and the possibilities. And I just thought that was really a great day for them. And that was at the new downtown amphitheater, so it was really, really good. We also I went to South Fort Myers. They had a job and internship fair. Our students were given an opportunity to come out of class and speak to many, many companies of what their lives may look like, whether it be higher ed or workforce. I want to thank Ms. Davis and her team as well. They were very instrumental in helping she's the career tech person over there who just did a fabulous job, and they were going to have a second part of that out at FGCU. So those students who could not participate, I'm sorry, backing up, they were going to have, I believe this one was going back out to Lehigh, was going to have the second one. So that would allow the students to have the people right there on property for them to speak to. They also, I had the opportunity to do the Do the Right Thing. We had ceremony. We had 16 kids here. They were just, it was really nice to see, and just the thoughtfulness of these children and what they have done, and just the caring and the parents as well. It was just very nice, and I know Ms. Vaughn always speaks about that because she loves doing that. I attended the LACA Hall of Fame, the induction of the Hall of Famers. I know Ms. Patrica was there as well. Dr. Savage was there. That was very emotional. The whole night I felt like I was going to cry because they spoke such from the heart, and it was just very, very emotional, especially to see the men who were receiving this, and they had a hard time getting through this acceptance and just being honored with that. So that to me was really great. Our SOS Coffee, and that's our Support Our Student program. A lot of us attended that, and that's our program for our kids for the summer, you know, keeping them active, making sure that they have a good foundation and moving them forward. Fort Myers High School. We participated in that program too, the NFL Foundation Grassroots Grant Kickoff, where they, and I know that Ms. Giovanelli, many of us were there as well, and the NFL had given a check to the school as well as some other donors, so that was a very nice event. And the way that they came through there, and I can't remember the number that he said, 1,800, I think he said, students touched that field throughout the year, because there's so many kids at that field, it really affects in with the schools. I wrote it down, but I can't remember what it was. And then also we have this week, we have, celebrating our teachers, we have the Golden Apple that's coming up, so I'm really excited for them. We have a lot of our schools, we're at the end of the school year, so there's so much going on. A lot of our schools are participating in Decision Signing Day. I know my grandson's having his coming up at Bonita High School. I hope he knows what his decision is, because he's graduating. So I'm really excited for him and the others. I know South usually does that. And that's either signing for higher ed or going into a trade. And then also our students, the performances, they're really up and going right now. And I would advise everybody, if you really want to see an excellent show, you should really go on our websites, go to the school websites and see what these kids are doing. I know Ida Baker's doing, I believe it was the Adam family that they're doing. We have Lehigh Senior is doing another one. And that's just a few of them that are participating, but we really need to embrace these kids, go there. You will not be sorry for, I think it's $5. That's probably the best show that you will see. And then, and I'm just sharing because we have so much good things that are going on, and I think that people really need to hear that. And then today I actually had, this morning I had an opportunity, and it's just showing about community. Judge Anderson, who I worked with many years ago, today they honored him by renaming the Isaac Anderson Justice Center. And I thought that was really a great touch. And that's what I have for now.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. You covered a lot.
Tried.
Rika.
So a couple of my comments are going to seem like I'm having a Dave LaRosa love fest, but he's really impressed me recently. The Lee County Athletic Conference Hall of Fame, he was phenomenal.
Yes.
I have been to 5 statewide Hall of Fame inductions through the FHSAA, and while they're all done incredibly well, not one of them evoked the kind of emotion in me that this one did. I do have to correct my colleague and say the men and women that were inducted.
A woman, that's
Yes,
right, there was a woman.
Thank you, because
Thank you.
it's something to be really, really proud of. It was really moving to see grown men. The woman didn't cry, so grown men reduced to tears in memory of their high school
That's
day
what got
days.
me.
It was really cool. It was really, really cool. And I will say that Angela Rolls from Cyprus gave the most amazing introduction speech of the one woman who was inducted, who is one of our own. Not only did she graduate from Cyprus, but she is the assistant principal at South Fort Myers High School. So she has come back and used the education and excellence that she received through training as a high-level Olympic training swimmer to come back and to give back to our kids. So the whole event was amazing, and Dave LaRosa was in charge. And he ran the event in a way that really impressed me, and that was right before I went into FHSAA interviews for the new executive director. Now, that's what I see the executive director at FHSAA do. I see him do events like induction ceremonies and student, big events like that with banquets and lots of people in the room. So I knew Dave could handle that. I mentioned yesterday, Dave was not chosen for that position, but I will tell you the interview he gave was phenomenal. I feel like I got to know Dave LaRosa as a professional and as a human being much better than I had known him before, and I worked pretty closely with him because if I have an FHSAA question, he's the guy I call. So I talked to him quite frequently, but I learned a lot more about him, and like I said yesterday, there were five really good choices, and this is how it ended up landing, which is no statement against Dave. I mean, he really was phenomenal. I'm really proud of him, and I think Lee County should be proud of him given the performance at LCAC and the interview that he gave to that board of directors. He was fantastic. So kudos to you, Dave LaRosa. In terms of finance advisory and the question regarding insurance and putting it out to bid, that is a question that committee has been asking forever. I was on that committee for 2 years. Ms. Jordan, I believe, followed me. They obviously were asking that question then. They continue to ask it now. If I may suggest, go back to the committee and tell them there's nothing the board can do without a recommendation. Like, they need to recommend to us that we direct the superintendent to go through a process if in fact that's what they want to do. Questions to staff are not going to move the needle on that. And then in terms of a question that I've been really trying hard not to react to in sort of just a gut kind of way, back on April 8th, I think the very first time you all put our board update on board docs, there was a discussion in there, I think it was C1, about FEMA reimbursements from Irma. And looking at the item right now, FEMA policy requires county governments to reimburse school districts for 100% of shelter costs incurred, whether or not the cost can be reimbursed by FEMA. The next subparagraph under that is, of the actual costs incurred, close to $800,000, Lee County government has reimbursed the district about $1.18, $1.19. That's about $680,000 worth of unreimbursed shelter expenses that we are bearing right now. I don't want to react and think, okay, that the county is not pulling its weight there. If there's some legal sort of exception that I'm unaware of and that's not stated in this update. But I worked those shelters and our staff did an amazing job, and I did not see county staff anywhere in the shelters. They were not there. And when I think about $680,000 and I think about bus driver raises and I think about support staff raises and I think about paying administrators what they should be paid, when I say administrators, I mean principals and assistant principals in buildings, I think $680,000 could go toward that. I mean, I know it's probably not all operating, some of it is probably capital, but I'd like a really clear answer on that. And, you know, is there, if in fact we are on the hook for $680,000 that the Lee County should be reimbursing us, is there a legal remedy? Or, through the chair, Dr. Savage, is this one of those non-electeds to non-elected conversations? Like, were you even aware of this? Have you and Roger Desjardins had a conversation about this? Is this something that you guys can resolve with a simple conversation?
I would say this is probably not something we're going to resolve with a simple conversation. I will say there's engagement on both sides because districts and counties vary in terms of how they approach the situation. I think their interest has been not to be a middle person. That part of the challenge in qualifying reimbursements from their perspective is that we essentially, our staff, our procedures, everything we're doing is then being transmitted to them. They then have questions being asked of them that they can't answer. They then have to go back to us to try to do it. And so different districts and counties go about this in different ways. I think from our standpoint, our staff has kind of had a different perspective of what really we should be doing and what level of, as we wait for qualified reimbursements to have that can be years in some cases. That's money then we can't use because we're sitting there waiting to see if, and that's if, you know, Susan Millay is much more knowledgeable about this and explaining some of the challenges, but sometimes they're moving the goalposts as you're filing for reimbursements, that the rules by which you're even, you know, notating different damages and things that have been done, then it gets changed. So there's just a lot to this conversation, but I would say it's absolutely a fair question to ask for you or any of us. There's been a lot of conversation with, in terms of our interlocal that is governed by, from a disaster standpoint, as well as what's the best way of doing business collectively together. We've had a number of conversations. I don't think at this time I have a ready resolution to answer that, other than to say, I had some follow-up, I think, earlier today and yesterday, because I was listening to the question that was asked at yesterday's meeting, and I said, here's the answer we provide. I think there's a little bit more that we need. So I have an entry that I'm just kind of reviewing as you were asking this question. So if you'll give me a little bit of time just to kind of put my head together, hearing this additional material you've asked, sitting with both Ms. Letcher and Ms. Millay, and Ms. McFarland, too. I think if we just kind of have a chance with them, and then some other folks as well, I'd love just a chance to kind of sit down and put our heads together and think about what our recommendation would be, and maybe just some next steps around that.
And it's entirely possible that I read it wrong, and that we are in fact responsible for this, but that's not, if I read it wrong, I read it wrong. And that's why I asked the question, because I don't want to react like $608,000 is a lot of money, it's not our responsibility, if in fact it is. So any clarification you can provide before I react more than I did today would be great. Thank you. Those are my comments for today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Giovanelli.
Okay, I just have a few too. Real quick, I'm going to piggyback off of something one of the board members said regarding the website. Last night, I'm the liaison for a curriculum advisory committee, and there were several complaints regarding our website and it being not user-friendly, and all the clicks to get to where the information they were looking for, they needed. So, in fact, I quoted one of the parents said, communication issues, she even called it. They don't feel like the information gets out there enough, and that's just in general. So I just want to bring that. I know I've mentioned it before that I've had other complaints regarding our website and it not being user friendly. So it came up again last night, and I thought that was interesting that they did. They also talked about the math textbooks, and I had asked Dr. Spiro to update the board on that, because there was quite regarding what the governor had pulled many of the math textbooks, and I thought it would be, there was a lot of information that was too much for Melissa to even write down. I started writing it down, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're gonna have to come back and explain this, because it was way too much information. And so they're not here. So if you could, because I think it would be beneficial for the board and anybody watching right now, just a status. And basically, several of the books are in the appeal process. But they were some of our books that we had first and second choices. So that it was important. And some of them it didn't affect, but it affected elementary the most, if it was my understanding. So I thought that was important. That being said, I went to my granddaughter's dance recital at Edison Park. That was adorable. It's an old school. It's very cute auditorium. And it does remind me of the auditorium at the Dunbar Community School as well. And somebody said, oh, actually, Jared Eady said that at the SOS breakfast, and I had just been there the night before, so I was looking around and going, yeah. So it's neat that we have these older schools, and they're very beautiful and maintained well, the old theaters. The groundbreaking at Emancier. Amanda, all right. Oh my gosh, there's 3 different ways it was just said. So my apologies. So I might have to say it in English. Maybe that's what I need to do. I don't know. Anyways, so I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. And the SOS breakfast, I brought that up. We still are in need of business partners and sponsors for our interns, and so I strongly suggest we have more breakfasts, maybe even midday meet and greets regarding that and getting that information out. Kaylee's doing a great job on that, but we do need more sponsors. And then thank you, Ms. Jordan, for bringing up the groundbreaking at Fort Myers High School, the field for their new field. I've had a lot of questions regarding that, regarding the track. So if we could get an update, people are hoping that the track is going to be updated at the same time. That would be a rubber track. And, but I'm still told that it won't be a certified track due to some kind of drainage. The principal had said to me regarding the track, but I think that's a city thing. And I happened to be sitting with the mayor, and the mayor said, you know, let's talk about it and see if it's something that we can make that track a certified track from 6 lanes to the 8 lanes that's needed to make it certified, apparently. So I don't do any running, so I wouldn't know what or what that would mean. So, and evidently it's very important on how it's laid out to be accurate in running. So something I learned a couple days ago. Anyways, that's all I have, I think. Oh yes, Miss Gittens brought up the 7-day period. I have had a lot of parents come to me actually that Friday at the field groundbreaking. Parents are concerned over the band programs. They feel like the seniors are not going to, most seniors are going to just not be in band this year because of the 7-day period. And the arts programs are going to suffer, and teachers are worried about their jobs and what they'll do if they don't have a program. So I think that's really important that we keep talking about that. And I know that's something that lots of people are talking about. So I'm going to just tell you again that people are very concerned over that. One of the things I'm going to bring up, and I thought we'd have more conversation regarding, and it will probably come up this evening, but I'm going to bring it up now, regarding job advertisements. I think it's important that as a board, we have probably, when Neola is looking at our policies, that there be a time, an advertising time specific, and I think that it would be interesting to see what other districts do regarding their policies and guidelines on that, and best practices on, I'm still concerned over a 5-day advertising. I don't think that that's sufficient. That's probably what was one of the biggest hangups for me. So I would like our policies to be looked at regarding the HR policies and advertising job descriptions. And I'll bring that up for conversation again if it comes back up again this evening, which it may. I think I brought the track up. I think that's it. So that's it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may ask a question in response to Ms. Patrica's comment about the Finance Committee, if I may give an answer to that. I did in error forget, and Ms. Lecter reminded me, if everyone goes to Google Drive and they go to Shared and Board Advisory Committee recommendations, it is on there. And the recommendation dated 4/20 from the Finance Committee is the Finance Advisory Committee would recommend that the Lee County School District send an RFP to see if there is a cheaper health insurance for employees and families or other creative solutions. So I am bringing that forward as a recommendation from the Finance Committee, and I apologize for not doing that earlier. I don't know how we proceed.
So,
Mr. Pre-Bruno.
Thank you. So at this point, since there's been a recommendation by the Finance Committee, if the board wants to take a consensus as to directing the superintendent to move forward with that. Yes.
It's not typically how we do it. Staff works on it, and then they come to the board and tell us what next steps are.
So the board is accepting that recommendation?
We don't do anything with the recommendation until there's a process. There's an internal.
Why wouldn't we?
Because there's an internal process. The recommendation is made, the staff liaison brings it back to the superintendent works with staff, and then the superintendent reports back to us, at which point we can direct the superintendent to, I mean, that's how.
Well, what you said previously was that we had to have a recommendation so we could direct the superintendent
Correct.
to move forward, and that's what we're doing.
The first step of that is to provide the recommendation to the superintendent so that he can work, I mean, we've been doing this for 4 years.
But that's what I just did. I just said, there's a recommendation, we're asking for consensus to direct the superintendent to look into the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
We don't need a consensus at this point. That's not how the process works, Ms. Gittens. We don't know what we're recommending at this point.
Point of order.
to the Superintendent.
Point of
because we don't
order.
know
Can
staff.
we
Trika, please.
Really, please, point of order.
Fisher, point of order has been called, so go ahead and rule on the point of order.
She called point of order.
Yeah.
I think Ms. Giovanelli was the first person to call it.
Point of order. Okay.
So Ms. Giovanelli, the basis of your point of order.
I was just trying to stop the conversation that was going down the road. So can we get back on track? How's that?
Yeah, I hope we can get back on track. Yeah.
Go ahead.
My
Okay.
point of
The
order is
basis-
very similar to Ms. Giovanelli. I think Mr. Bruno needs to take a look at this, and it's not something to be debated here at this time.
So if I may, Madam Chair, based on the conversation that the board has had, it appears that everybody's on the same page to have some more follow-up on this. So the superintendent, I'm sure, will go ahead and discuss it with staff and then bring back to the board what the recommendation is from the administration. Because it seems like everybody's on the same page on it.
Okay, so are we saying then, if a committee brings forth a recommendation, that we do not have to direct the superintendent to follow up with that with staff, that we just say this is the recommendation?
But what I'm saying is based on the conversation that is being had, that it's clear to me that the board wants the superintendent to follow up on that recommendation.
Right, so shouldn't it be technically stated that the board agrees for the superintendent to take the recommendation of the Finance Committee and follow up and bring us further information back? Simple.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So then, you heard the chair, she said yes, so then go ahead and move forward with the consensus.
Okay, well,
Okay. Okay, the board attorney said that we will move forward with the consensus. We have a board advisory recommendation to the board. Now, are we all in agreement that we want the superintendent to move forward and have staff bring us back more information regarding
That's
that?
all I asked.
Okay. So, all of those in favor of the superintendent doing that? Okay, so that is 6-0. Thank you.
No, because there's one.
It's 5-1.
There's
I
one
didn't
person
see
missing.
Oh, okay.
6-0.
6-0, that's correct.
One person missing.
Oh, 6-0, okay.
You're correct, Ms. Mayor. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Could you send us that internal document, please, Superintendent?
What?
About how these recommendations have been handled up to this point? Thank you.
We'll be happy to locate.
I know it's been given to the board in the past.
I don't think it's in the protocol manual, though. I have not seen that in the board protocol manual.
Board advisory. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Giovanelli, did you have anything else?
Oh, no, I was finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're finished.
Your turn.
Then it's my turn. Okay, and so I'm just going to say that I have also, I'm not going to be redundant, but I have also had multiple comments about the 7-period day, the same things that my colleagues have mentioned, that I enjoyed this Support Our Students Enrichment Program, and yes, we do need more businesses and supporters. And yes, also the website is difficult for some people to navigate. So this week is Administrative Professionals Week, and it's a time for us to recognize the important contributions and the support that our administrative professionals make each year to our economy and our workplace. And I want to say thank you to Lizette and LaTanya and all of the people in the superintendent's office who support us every day. And we will continue to celebrate, and Wednesday is actually Administrative Professionals Day. Okay. Continuous Systemic Improvement Committee has also made a recommendation. We had a presentation, a very comprehensive and interesting presentation by Kathy Ebaugh on district growth and land use. And so CSI has come up with a recommendation that says the Continuous Systemic Improvement Board Advisory Committee recommends that the district expand its land use and land purchasing objectives to include pursuing options for providing affordable housing options for district employees. And I think Ms. Vaughn will talk a little bit more about that later, because I think EDAC made a similar recommendation. Along with that recommendation by CSI, they also recommend that the district implement a legacy clause which would allow students to bypass the lottery process in order to attend their parents' or siblings' high school's alma mater. Families using this clause to attend a school outside of their choice zone would be responsible for their own child's transportation. Okay. Then on Thursday evening, this coming Thursday evening at the North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts, there is going to be the Santini Soiree. They will be dedicating their new black box to Dr. Douglas Santini, who's a former principal and a long-time servant of this district. And CSI, as I mentioned before, when we had our presentation about Franklin Park Community School, will be having their next meeting at the Franklin Park Community Meeting. So, Student Advisory, I wanted to thank Ms. Morgan, who's not with us today, for attending and welcoming and talking with the kids. And I want to thank Shelley Taylor, who is the district liaison, for organizing a wonderful social media presentation by Dr. Jim Short, Attorney Christine Schroed, Irma Lancaster, and Grace Edmonds. They want to do some communicating digitally, and they were advised of all of the rules and regulations that they need to follow and be able to communicate with their fellow students. And I think Ms. Dupree-Bruno is going to be providing us with some follow-up information about the student advisory.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we'll wait for that. Okay, and they adopted a historian position. They have been in effect since 2014, providing students an opportunity to participate in continuous improvement and be a voice for the needs of the students. And we continue to celebrate the successes and accomplishments of our students with the support of their teachers and other staff. And with that, I'm finished. And now, Mr. Dupree-Bruno.
Thank you. I have just a couple of things. The first is to give the board an update on Neola. We had our first meeting with them, and this was a smaller group of staff, basically legal, a member from IT, somebody from communications because the website will be implicated, somebody from the superintendent's office because we'll be dealing with board docs, as well as a general staff liaison. We're going to have another training May 26th that will be a little bit more comprehensive with additional staff members present. The timeline right now, there are some policies that I have inquired about based on our needs that I believe are urgent, and some of them will be coming to the board in May, and we will have some policies coming to the board in June. But July is when the board will start with the bylaws. And then once those bylaws start, you will be getting regular policies coming from Neola and myself. Basically, Neola will help with the presentation, and then staff will be working with us. There's a whole process on how this works. We've had our initial review of the policies, and there are quite a few policies that we do not have in our policies. And one of the reasons for that is that sometimes we combine different topics. In the past, we have combined different topics. And because there is some concern from the APA guidelines that each policy is really supposed to be about one topic, that's one of the reasons that we have we don't have as many policies as Neola has. So we're going to be updating that to ensure that we're completely compliant. The process is going to take over 6 months. The way that this is set up, it's a very laborious process. It involves, legal is taking the lead, but we're going to need staff to participate and contribute to these policies. So this is going to be a long commitment to make sure that we get this done. Hopefully we'll get it done within the year, but it's definitely going to be 6 months to a year for sure. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you, we're going to have policies that will be coming to the board. However, with the exception of policies coming in May and June, the recommendation is that the board doesn't necessarily adopt the policies as it comes. So if you get policies in August and September, not adopt them so that we can have one formal adoption of all of the policies at one point and a formal rescission of the policies that we currently have. It helps with keeping the system as clean as possible. So that's hopefully the board will be inclined to do that. So as we move forward, we can have that further discussion with Mr. Young when he comes, when we start talking about the bylaws. But I think that will be a better way for us to do that, even though the board will be getting policies to review and technically saying, yep, these policies are good to go, but the formal adoption of all the policies will be at one time, and the formal rescission of our policies will be one time. And part of that reason is all of the policies now will be on board docs. So it's going to be a completely different system. So if we're, approving certain policies like in September, some of them will be on board docs because everything that Neola is going to be providing and approving, and Neola has to approve the final copy of those policies to give us that assurance that they will defend us if something happens. So they have to have that final approval. All of their policies is going to be on board docs. So what could happen if we don't do it this way is we'll have some policies on board docs and we'll have some policies still on our website. So this is something for the board to consider. We can make a final decision and discussion about that as time goes on. The other thing I want...
Mr. Prebrino.
Through the chair, so this will also allow opportunity for the public to speak on it at any time.
Oh, yes.
Until, well, even after a formal adoption, obviously, but that kind of keeps it open there for any public input and any changes that they might.
We're still going to have the rulemaking process normally, but we want to do it like one bulk, but the public will be able to see that whole bulk of policies. Throughout this entire period, policies will be coming to the board. So the public will know what those policies are. They can voice their opinions on the policies. It's just the intricacies of switching from the website base to the board docs base. That's really what the biggest concern is, so that we have one location. And it's going to be a project because we have links to policies all over the place. Schools have links to policies, so all of that has to be cleaned up. So it's going to take some time from that perspective. But the board will be getting policies on a regular basis. We have a policy workshop each month that's going to be dedicated to just policies, and that we will be reviewing different policies with the board so that you know what we are doing and how we're proceeding with that.
Thank you.
And then Ms. Patrica has something.
So the bylaws will be adopted along with the other policies?
Yes.
And when you're looking, you said July, typically the board doesn't meet until the very end.
It's going to be the last meeting, it's going to be the first, we're actually having special workshops. So on the Mondays that you have your normal workshops, we're going to have a morning workshop once a month. That's just going to be a policy workshop.
So it will be sandwiched around the board meeting at the very end of the month?
Yes.
That's what I needed. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that?
Thank you. Please proceed.
Exciting process, and this is one of the best things, I've said this before, one of the best things that the board could have done is to really, and this is, now we're coming up to speed with some of our very high-performing sister districts, so this was a great investment. So the other thing, I just wanted to remind everyone with regards to Board Policy 2.04, which is campaigning on school district grounds. Just a reminder that all candidates, be them school board candidates or county commissioner candidates or whomever, House representative candidates, it doesn't matter, cannot campaign on school board property. This is a violation of our policy for a very specific reason. In addition, if a staff member wants to put a particular candidate sticker on their personal vehicle, that's fine, but not on district vehicles. What does it mean to campaign? That includes everything from soliciting petitions, people to sign your petitions, or providing pamphlets or cards or anything like that. That's all part of campaigning. And then finally, I just want to remind employees of the school board that campaigning for a candidate in public office during work time is prohibited. You're not allowed to do that. That is a violation of Board Policy 2.04. I'm going to repeat the same statement again tonight, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we understand what the policy is. In addition, I did send an email to staff with regards to 2.04. If anybody has questions of what can and can't be done, please call the Office of Legal Services, 337-8512, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with guidance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Dr. Savage.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, just answering a few questions from earlier. One, we'll certainly have staff bring back a response from administration for the additional information specifically asked for within the insurance side of the financial advisory. I also heard multiple board members just concerns about the website and it being user-friendly and whatnot, so I'll certainly have a follow-up conversation with communications on that and just kind of what's our overarching way of how are we kind of informing on the usability of that, what's their current expert opinion, and how are we ensuring that we are being responsive to when folks are having a difficult time, and what are our standards for evaluating the performance of our website and how effective it is. I will also have a follow-up conversation with Mr. La Rosa, who was a celebrity today, and Frederick Ross relating to the Fort Myers High School track, specifically relative to the track as part of that expansion from 6 to 8 lanes and the certification process on that. Board advisory, that document in terms of how that works, Ms. McClung made eye contact with me, so I believe she has that. Also, Ms. McClung is the liaison to the CSI, so I'll be happy to file a little bit more about the legacy clause on that piece, because that would impact a number of folks, both planning, student assignment, enroll. I just want to get a little bit more information about that recommendation that came out of that piece. Also, just because a number of board members mentioned they were getting a lot of concerns about the 7-period day. I know Dr. Spiro, I know our website's down, but Dr. Spiro does have an email box that they have been running that have been answering questions, and they've been monitoring how many emails they're getting and things of that. And so what I'm going to ask him to do is send to the board members that specific contact and how they want it, so that sometimes there's misconceptions, and so I just want to make sure that he's aware, because his team is living this. So I just want to make sure that's being shared with the board members so that you all have that at the ready. If someone were to contact you, say, hey, we'll have you email this box, whatnot, because it doesn't work.
No, I tried it.
Well, shucks.
Can you all, may I, through the chair? Could you also have him resend us a link to that DAC meeting? Where the parents asked so many questions and staff provided so many answers? Please
Happy
and
to
thank
do
you.
it. Happy to do it. Link to
Thank
DAC
you.
and the email box. And you said the email itself is just not working?
Whatever the link was that he sent, it didn't work.
Okay, broken link. Very good. And I believe there's a bunch more. The FEMA piece as well, I think I forgot to mention, that's a huge one to us as well. It is pretty significant. So there were probably others that I didn't, but I have other folks listening for those as well, and I did take a lot of other notes. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back here at 5:30 for student performance, and followed by action meeting at 6 p.m. Seeing no other business and hearing no objections, this meeting is adjourned.
We all going to be late tonight, right? Based on the text I sent